Ponytails podcast. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Ponytails podcast. My name is Andres Gamboa. I am the host of the show, and I am excited for today's episode. It has been a hoot and a holler in the back room, in the green room, in the sound check, getting ready for Alecia Huck. Man, it's going to be a fun one. A little bit about our guests here in a sec. Just want to do a couple of announcements and some stuff that we are going to have happen and changes to our program here coming up. Of course, you guys already know, we'll get to the Bizler announcement in just a second. We are having a couple little other alumni get-togethers in Florida, in Gainesville, and hopefully in Nashville. More details on that to come as well, where we're doing a beer party. So if you're in those cities, you can come hang out with us. You can come drink our beer and just hang out, do a little networking as well while we're doing there. But that's exciting. If this is your first time on the show, welcome. Glad you're here. We're at 102 episodes in, and it's been a blast so far. Every single one of them has been something new and something learned for sure. But yeah, this is the show where we interview people. If you don't know, we interview people about their experience selling door to door, specifically selling books door to door with Southwestern Advantage, a company that recruits college kids to go sell all over the country. Every summer, a bunch of kids do it, and it's probably one of the craziest experiences people will have in their life, as you will no doubt tell from the show and the stories. So thank you for listening in. Thank you for being part of today's show. You can go back and listen to more of this. Please make sure you follow us and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're all over the place. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. Follow us. Tell all your book friends about us. Based on who you are, they should love us and be excited to talk to us. So update on Bizler. If you don't know, August 15th through the 19th, if you're an alumni and this is your first episode listening because you saw Alecia Huck's name, you're like, oh my God, she's so awesome. Well, not only are you right, but get excited. Sit down if you're standing, because we're throwing a party in Mexico. So August 15th through the 19th. Super excited about this. It's called our Bizler trip, business sizzler, if you wish, or maybe just better sizzler. I don't know. It's a 5-star resort in Cancun, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Super high energy, super high end, and we are going to be having networking events and stuff throughout there, as well as like slosh ball and all the classics from the old time. We're hoping to have alumni there from all sorts of different walks and all sorts of different industries, so we can make it as valuable to our guests as possible. For more details on that, there will be, actually, I think right now there's a link below that you can click on, and there's a sign-up form. A couple of details on that. We are doing a partnership with Elevate Wellness, where us here on the Ponytails podcast team are getting fit for it and in a healthy way. So Elevate Wellness is one of our partners. We love working with them. Seth Hood, Zane Gallagher, Joe Ignis. These guys are whipping us into shape. I'm getting my ass kicked every week, and that's a good thing. My wife is appreciating it a lot. And honestly, it's been kind of nice to just kind of look like I'm in my earlier 20s. My hairline won't tell you that, but maybe neck down, I'm kind of like, all right, look at this. I'm looking healthy again, getting shredded. And of course, they're giving us a lot of really good tips, not just in the gym, really primarily the biggest gain, the biggest lessons I've learned is actually through the kitchen. Seth has been really good about teaching me about how to feed myself correctly, and it's kind of wild. Testimonial is I was eating some Burger King. I've been eating so well, but I decided to cheat, and I went to eat like some Burger King jalapeno poppers, and about 15 minutes later, like my body was like, dude, what are you doing? And all of that because of our friends at Elevate Wellness. So literally, if you want to get into the best shape, summer's coming up and maybe you've kind of fallen through on your resolutions for January, but seriously, it's never too late to start with them. And if you guys sign up through us, you're actually going to get a discount on it. And if you're a book person, you actually get a discount on their program. For more details, there's a ton of different options, and we can get a hold of you, or you can get a hold of us and we can shoot you all of the details. We can also provide a link to all of this stuff for you guys to find and be able to access their programs. Fantastic. Cannot over recommend it. It's been a really good benefit for me in my life. Cool. Also, shout out to Will Metscher. Will Metscher is working with Southwestern Consulting. He is a dear friend of mine, old friend from my 4 days of selling books door to door. If you know Will, he's just the loveliest human being ever. And it's been a lot of fun working with him. He helps people suck less, as he says himself. But right now they're looking for more people to be coaches in the program and to help others exceed their goals. Specifically speaking with us, Will's been working with us to get into the right zone, focusing on the things we need to. I've said this already, but we've grown really, really well and really big in the last few years, and excuse me, the last few months. And a lot of the growth has been because of Will. We are super excited to have him on as part of our jockey team. Jockeys are our sponsors, of course. But Will provides a lot of structure. He provides a lot of goal orientation and just a lot of realistic attainability for them. So every time I talk to him, I leave that meeting going, holy cow, I can actually do this. This can happen. This is going to happen. And just with a ton of confidence. So shout out to Will. We love you lots, brother. Now, let me bring up our guests. Okay, so guys, 1995 to 2000 book chick, badass book chick from JYD. She went to school in South Dakota, and she before the show she was like, I know a lot about Nebraska, so it's exciting because as you guys might know, I moved to Nebraska as a kid. That's a story for another time. But yeah, Alecia is just a super high energy already, and I'm excited to get to know her a little bit more as we progress through this episode. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring her onto the air. Let's see. Boom. Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
I'm really excited, but I have to tell you, I kind of need to pick a fight with Will Metscher because suck less used to be my thing. That was something I said a lot, and I feel like he sort of stole it, although he probably didn't actually steal it, but I'm still sort of mad at him, and I'm just going to stay mad at him for a while. But I love that you guys are working with him. It's so smart, right? A lot of us, it's so funny. You talk to so many people who sold books and they're like, I don't understand why life is hard now. I'm like, well, you don't get a PC ever. You don't have anybody providing you with new information. And your company thinks that good motivation is, hey, you don't want to be the low-hanging fruit at the end of the month. I don't know why it's so different.
Wow. There it is right there. Will, if you're listening, that was a Sour Patch Kid ad right there. First she was sour, then she was sweet.
Will, but you should also tell him he owes me a beer because I think it's only fair.
Absolutely. Speaking of beer, are you drinking? Are you drinking with us today? Or
no, I'm Diet Coking it. I live in Denver, Colorado, and it's you can get a hangover just walking to your car here. We're at elevation. It's very, very dry. Like you're always just. I've never lived in a place where we talked about hydration more. It's an ongoing battle.
That makes sense. Fair enough. I have this Party Time Pilsner. I think it's local from Portland.
Oh, I was like, is that one of the beers for the cool Nashville trip that I heard about, which I didn't get a personal hand-engraved invitation to and was sort of annoyed with? I mean, what's happening here?
We sent it with the bird, and the bird's blind, so I apologize.
Oh,
yeah, that's
damn. You got to get better birds, man. This is ridiculous.
I know. It's really not. It's not ideal, but the budget's low expenses, so we're not no text messaging, no emails. We're just
we have birds that flunked out of Southwestern, like they quit like week 2. They're very lame. They may or may not ever make it where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, I've gotten people's bar reports before from like 1994. They just got to me. I think they were really lost. Oh my gosh.
The Pace Setters is in your parents' mailbox as we speak.
Oh, this is gonna be a good episode. I'm excited because I don't know if people know this. If you're listening for the first time, we don't do any pre-approach. So I am literally getting to know you as we speak, literally.
Just overcome by the awesomeness from the word go. Yeah. Well, I was looking at the list and I'm like, where are all the junkyard dog people? Like we have this hole. So I have to kind of blaze a path because there's a lot of awesome people in there. We used to, Yvette Keister, who was in Forest, she started we were rookies the same summer. She and I, Virgie Sanford, that was all legend. There was Lester Crafton. I mean, there was this whole mess of people that was just crazy.
Yeah, that's we can get into like the summers really quick, but what's it like looking back at because you're kicking ass at life, and so is Yvette, so is Lester, and so what's it like looking back at who you guys were back then, and what life is like now and the friendships that you made?
Well, I mean, I know that people always they joke about thank God we didn't have cell phones during our Sizzlers, and I really know that there are probably some photographs in somebody's like garage or something that I don't really like. There are reasons none of us can run for public office, right? I mean, I met Grant Greeter and Curtis Rogers in a pool in Mexico, and everybody had a beverage. So it's what I mostly remember about everybody is just none of us really got it at the time. And it's really fun when you see somebody over the course of their life and how they develop. And, like Les is off doing solar, trying to save the world,
Yeah.
right? Yvette's, I mean, amazing. It's very weird. There is this place that you get to in your life. And I think it comes with a certain amount of age and who you know. But for me, it's sort of like all the choices that you made, they just, that gap gets bigger exponentially. And then there's a point where you're like, wow, there's a big drop off between me and, say, some of the people I went to high school with, right? Because I
Mhm.
chose to go to college and I chose to sell books door to door instead of hanging out in the summer. And then one day you look around and you're like, I have choices that other people don't necessarily have. And I have, there are peers that you can call who regularly talk about hundreds of millions of dollars. And I just find that really trippy. I grew up
Yeah.
in a trailer in South Dakota, and 100 million doesn't sound like that much to me anymore. And I don't have 100 million, but I know people who have 100 million. And
It's wild.
it's just and what they build, right? I mean, you guys started a podcast. You're like, turns out there's enough alumni to make a podcast, a profitable business that's just all of us telling old war stories and being like, oh God, I remember that.
Yeah. It's so wild because it's just exactly what you're talking about. There's something that there's a certain amount of trust that you can put in someone, especially if they sold multiple
Mhm.
summers. Not that that's the
Yeah, yeah.
key to success or anything, but like,
No,
but
it for sure is. If you only sold one, you're lame and stupid. And if you didn't recruit, we don't respect you. Just for
you a
people who are like
loser.
sold one summer and they're like, I sold books. And you're like, but did you? Did you
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. And it was like an 8-week summer. Like that
Yeah.
counts.
You're
It
like,
counts,
get out
but
of here with
barely.
that rookie ball. No, no,
Yeah.
thank
Come
you.
on now. Yeah. But
Mhm.
hey, it's again, there's something about like the fact that there's even that lesson learned throughout those summers that like that that you can trust. Like when even it's also in the peers, kind of like what you're talking about. So if I was to tell like a group of high school friends, hey, I'm launching a podcast and I'm going to monetize it and I'm going to make a
Mhm.
living off of it. Maybe I'm not making hundreds of millions of dollars like some of the other book people, but I'm making enough to live, right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say, look at me, I'm so cool, but my friends would be like,
Yeah.
okay. But on the other hand, like if I was to tell my book friends, hey, I made a podcast and I'm going to monetize it and I'm going to make a living off of it, they'd be like, yeah, can I, can I support you? How do I, like, it's a
Yeah.
whole
Should
different
I
group.
invest? If you talk to
Yes.
Todd
Yeah.
McWhirter, he'll be like, do you want me to invest?
Actually, soon enough, Todd. Soon enough. Great guest on the show, by
You
the way.
definitely want him to invest. Like you want him
Yeah.
on your team for sure.
That's a
Yeah,
group of guys that you want on your corner for sure.
oh my God, those guys are amazing. I live in the same city as Todd, so we've had a lot of beers together. It's funny though, the kids up in Boulder, they've had me up to speak. They're really good at recruiting alumni from this area. And it was funny because, it was like a GRS whatever for them. And I thought about it and I was like, well, what would I tell people about recruiting after all these years? Like what really makes the difference? And I think this goes to what you were saying about how do you feel when you bump into other book people, right? Like, why is that connection there? Is it just because we were all really crazy and like, I don't know, 80 hours a week sounds like fun to me. You mean I can live out of state? Neat. Host family? Sweet. But what I tell them, because I realized it, I mean, I wasn't the best recruiter in the world. Like, I think my biggest team was, I don't know, maybe 10 people. I never finished a summer with that many, right? But I was really good with other people's people, which I think plays a big role in how I do now. But I thought about it and I was like, man, if I were recruiting today, I would skip all the fancy speeches, right? I would skip all the like hyperbole. I would just get a bunch of people in a room and I'd be like, hey, do you like hard things? Sweet,
Yeah.
you can stay. Everybody else get out.
Yeah.
Like
Fuck off.
that's how I'd float people. I'd be like, do you do you like hard things? Great, come with me. And that would be
Yes.
it. I'd be like, if you like hard things, because that's, I feel like what
Yeah.
all book people have in common, right? Like we're a little weird that way, but we like the challenge. We want to beat it. We want to beat other people. We want to know something different about ourselves. And I think if you end up in a room with somebody who chose to sell books for multiple summers, you can just count on that that's part of their makeup, right? They're going to be good at learning. They're pretty coachable. They have at least enough personal will to make some things happen. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a good room to be in.
Yeah. And it also humbles you in a different way, right? Like I remember going to sales school. I think I've told this before in other episodes, but like just I was a kid that got straight A's in school, 4.2 GPA because I had the weighted courses. I was the captain of all
Right.
the things: varsity soccer, varsity show choir, varsity orchestra. Like, I was had a job, and then I go to sales school, and Dan Morris sits there and he's like, "All right, if you were the captain of some sort of sport, stay standing. If you got a 4.0 GPA, stay standing." And I look around and there's like 800 other people. And I'm like, oh shit, I am
Yep.
average here.
Different
So
pond, different
yeah.
fish.
And it's because of that. It's that people, I think with Haynes Maxwell, I think we were talking about this, where it was like there's something about like nobody recruits you to sell books. I feel like you kind of recruit yourself. It just happens that you like the timing worked out. Like we're ponies that way. Like
Yes.
the people want to say it was the money or the travel, and that probably was the initial hook, right? But
Right.
at the end, you stayed and you didn't quit when it got hard because there was something in you that you were like, no, I'm built for this.
It's funny that you say that because I think when you first become a manager, right? They give you all this training and you get this stupid idea in your head that you're somehow the one who persuaded somebody to go sell books.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not recruiting is not recruiting. Recruiting is finding. Recruiting is like, are you someone who likes hard things? Come with me. Don't be too afraid. I will go with you. And then, I mean, there's so many stories, right? My boss was recruited like during finals week, like 3 days before sales school. And he was a pig farmer in Iowa. And he's like, yeah, I'll go sell books. No problem. I'm in.
Yeah.
Jumps in a car and does great and built a really extraordinary organization that so many other leaders have come from. Like yeah, it's
Yeah.
a weird thing, right?
You also got people like Kate Walker who like she's watching someone who did this and she's like, I want to do this. Like they were not recruiting girls in her organization at the time. It was like the other
Mhm.
half of the company where they were totally not into women selling books.
Cough, cough, inappropriate, stupid, missed a ton of units.
Idiots. And which now we all know women sell way more books than men, which is hilarious.
Dude.
Like, of course, it's hilarious on them, right? Like, well, of course that makes sense because
Yeah.
fucking women are
I'm
awesome.
sorry. Do you not like money or winning? Was that the
Yeah,
thing that was happening right there?
idiots. But she had to
Mhm.
like beg to come on, and like there's something like a little bit of that in all of us where that did this that, and that's also why you meet people who are like, this is a book person that never sold. You ever met someone like that where it's
Exactly.
like,
Yep. Oh
oh,
yeah.
if you would have just been talked to about this in college,
Yep.
you would have been
And they're so
amazing.
annoyed that they missed out. They're like, I would
Yeah,
have killed it at that. And you're like, yes, you would have. Or you would have left in the first week because you weren't ready. Like your
yeah.
ego wasn't ready for the ego check that it is when
Oh,
you're like sitting in your car crying into
yeah.
a PB&J sandwich in the heat of Georgia. I mean, that's a hypothetical example. That's not necessarily real or something I experienced multiple times.
Right. It's not something that happened to me in upstate New York or Pennsylvania or upstate or New England. But if that would have been that would have been now.
Yeah.
Now, okay, on that topic. All right, let's roll the clock back. Small town, South Dakota, trailer park. Who the heck were
Hmm.
you when you first
Yep.
got approached about this thing, and how did that happen that you got into this whole ordeal of Southwestern Advantage?
Yeah. So I was at the University of South Dakota in Vermilion, the Harvard of the Midwest.
Yeah,
Heavy
sure.
sarcasm on that part,
Yeah,
heavy
yeah.
sarcasm. Um, so I'm
So-
a freshman and I think I'm going to law school, right? I went to high school in Spearfish, South Dakota, went to school across the state. And one night I'm in my dorm room and I get this phone call from a girlfriend named Erin Indahl. And it goes something like this. Like she's sobbing. She's crying so hard. I think maybe somebody's dead or wildly injured. Like, I mean, this is like she's hyperventilating crying. It took me 7 minutes just to get her to calm down enough. And this is what comes out of her mouth. I got a great summer job. And then there's more crying, right? So like
Lovely.
I'm very confused by this, but I'm listening to her and she's telling me about it. And by the time she's done, I say two things like in my own head. I'm like, this is for sure a scam. Like, this is some serious BS. There's no way you're making that much money in a summer. You got to go away. This is crap. But if it's not a lie, I want to do it too. And so,
Relatable.
right? So I go into the room and I'm in the room, and there was this guy that I went to high school with who looked just like Bon Jovi. Like he had the big epic mane of hair, like old school Bon Jovi before he cut it, right? Like living on a prayer Bon Jovi, huge hair, right? And so I go into my interview and there's like this guy that I'm in the honors program with and some other people. And I'm sitting there and my friend Dave is like, nah, this is stupid. This isn't for me. He leaves. I can see the person at the front get nervous. And I'm like, I want to do this. Like I'm clear it's not a scam. And then I'm kind of looking around the room and I'm like, is that Neil Renner? Like this guy I went to high school with the Bon Jovi hair, but now he had this crew cut and I was so confused. Like he was a rock star at our high school. And so I just remember going through the whole thing and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And of course my parents just lost their minds completely. And my father had, I'm from South Dakota. We had a lot of guns in the house. So I was a little worried for my student manager, but they got that all worked out. And then, I ran into a friend in the hallway and I said to her, hey, I'm doing this thing. If they call you, you should do it. And I didn't think much of it. She goes to an interview, she gets recruited and I find out about it. And then I know a little bit more at this point. So I sit my boss, Jeff Hahn, down and I say, Jeff, I'm not trying to like sink somebody else's boat or anything, but like this person that you've recruited, she's not going to be able to handle this. Like this is not for her. I thought maybe it would be, it's not. She's not going to make it, right? And that person was Virgie Sanford, and she proceeded to cream me every single year in every single category.
And now, everybody else, really.
Oh my God, right? And now she's got this huge organization. She's still with the company. And I tried to talk Jeff out of letting her go.
And she's a legend. I mean, Virgie is like still in the business legend. Like,
yeah,
whenever Virgie she decides to call it hang up the bag, she's I mean, gosh, she's a unicorn. She's like an amazing human being.
She is a unicorn, and she really so she's a good example. So you talk about how people have changed, right? Virgie and I went to high school and junior high together. So I've known her since the 7th grade. Like when we were still having awkward sleepovers for your birthday out on the deck because it, like in the summer. It was bananas.
Was her hair always that long? Was her hair always that long?
Always that long. In fact, it was funny one time. So after I got done selling books, she called me one year and she was down in Texas at Baylor, and that was a hard school to recruit at. And she was like, hey, and I was done selling books and kind of wandering, trying to find my place. She's like, if I paid for your ticket, would you come down and help me PC people? Like I've recruited a big team. My people have recruited big teams. Like I could just use some help, getting everybody squared away. Right. So I fly down there, and that for about 10 years, I would fly down and do that every single spring, which was so much fun. Because if you're kind of floundering in your own life and you haven't quite sorted yourself out and you go back to Bookfield land where you know what you're doing and can just be awesome on cue, it was such a gift. And but I remember one time we're standing in a bathroom and just getting ready to go on, and Virgie is wearing this beautiful, like sort of cream colored suit with an apricot shell, her long, angelic blonde hair everywhere. And I'm standing next to her in all black from head to toe, looking like the angel of death. Like we were and for a long time, we were that sort of like good and evil, right? Virgie would come in and be kind and sweet, and I would come in and swear and yell. And it ended up being this good balance because a lot of different people can be really successful at books, right? And she was leading one organization, but there were some people that she worked with that just didn't resonate with that kind of a message. And God knows you wouldn't have wanted me running an org all the time. There's a reason she's still around and I'm not, right? But yeah, seeing her over the years, like really round out her leadership set. I mean, I remember her and I talking a lot about how you confront people, right? Like, what does that look like? And how does that work? Because that was something that made her really uncomfortable. And I was somebody who they would always send me in. If somebody was off schedule, if they were struggling, I was the one. You had a meeting with Huck and she would get you back on track, right? And that I mean, you got to like do the steely-eyed death stare to get them to admit how off schedule they are. Puke it up and then you can hit the reset and move on. But the two of us together over the years, I really learned a lot from her about how to bring people in and that you could actually be effective, not being just really loud and aggressive, which was a revelation.
Wow. It's a growth business though. That's what life is, a growth business. So
the funniest thing, she calls me one time and she was talking about some people she worked with and she's like, and they don't this and they're not consistent. And she's going on and on. And I go, God, almost sounds like they're missing a lot of skills. And she goes, yeah. I go, it's kind of like they need to be developed. Like they're young people who need to be developed. She's like, that was just mean. That was just so mean.
But hey, sometimes I lean more on your camp where it's like sometimes the truth will out and that
Yeah.
true is kind. You know what I mean? Sometimes kindness is being nice, but sometimes kindness is like, hey, you got to shave your head, man. You're getting bald. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just, it's okay. It's okay.
I always say that I'm deeply kind, but I'm not necessarily very nice.
Same.
Like nice is not my jam.
Yes. Because it's not. Because sometimes nice is lying, and I'd rather be truthful than nice. You know what I mean?
And the truth is, I'm just really impatient. Like in a lot of ways, like my goal by the time I die is just to be a basically decent person. Because I'm super impatient. I'm like, my set point is, could you hurry up because this is too slow and you're doing it wrong? And I got to walk that back all the time to just sort of, function in the world and not yell at people too much.
I feel seen. I feel seen.
We're going to get pins. There's going to be a little club just for those of us who are like, listen, I'm doing the best I can, but you're on my last nerve and I'm not that nice to begin with.
And you got to, like, come on now. Are you an 8 on the Enneagram? I feel like you're an 8 on the Enneagram.
I am. Ooh,
same.
One of the teams I work with, we're bringing in an Enneagram guy. What's your wing? Are you a 7 or a 9?
7.
Me too. Do you know what the name of that subtype is?
Maverick.
Yeah.
I know. I studied.
I didn't know that.
I read a book.
But my company is called Maverick and Company, and I didn't know that before I made that decision. That's so sweet. I didn't know that.
Now you know.
Oh,
yeah. I used to think I was a 7. I used to think I was a 7, which is like the entertainer. But their basic fear is feeling alone, and I'm like, no, I could be alone. I don't mind.
Well, and they're all about, like, they don't want to miss out. Like 8s deal with things by controlling what they don't like. 9s deal with it by ignoring. That's what Virgie is, by the way. That's a well-known fact.
That
right?
Makes sense,
and then 7s deal with it by distracting themselves with fun things.
Yeah. And 8s, the basic fear of the 8 is not being in control. And that, like, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's me. I know. So
well,
for sure.
If you're somebody that a lot of people sort of default to, like, hey, you must be in charge. Like, I don't know if people do that to you wherever I am. People sort of assume that I'm running the thing.
Yeah. And it sounds like shitty to say it like that, but like if I was to say, yeah, people run to me, but no, it's not even by choice. It's just like, sometimes it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do it then because nobody else has to do it. I got to pull this whole thing by the bootstraps. Let's go. Like,
okay.
What the hell are we doing?
I feel super seen because I'm like, I don't have an ego that I think I got to be in control all the time.
Same.
But if something needs to get handled, okay, so funny side story. I'm with some clients up in Wyoming at Cheyenne Frontier Days, and we have like the killer seats right up front because we're with the bank and blah, blah, blah. And then it was 25,000 people at the concert. So they've never had that many people at a concert or really any event in Wyoming. And we're trying to leave, and they hadn't done planning well in the parking lot. So it's just a disaster, right? There's no movement anywhere. And we're sitting there for like 20 minutes. And it's my CFO from the client that I work with, and then the banker that had invited us. And I gave it about 20 minutes, but I can't do this. I'm not sitting in this parking lot for 3 hours. This is insane. So I actually jump out and I direct traffic. Like, I throw a bunch of people through, and then I pull our team through, and I keep backing up until we get to the actual road. And at one point, this guy in a pickup like runs up like he's going to run into me. And he's like, why should I listen to you? And I go, because I'm the reason the line's moving. And if you'd like to ever leave, you'll do what I say. Like, we're going to speed this up, right?
Boom.
And it took me about 25 minutes. I get our crews out to the road. I jump in, we drive away, and I assume the rest of the night was a disaster for everybody else.
Oh,
golly. And the guy driving the car looks at my CFO and he goes, is she really doing that? And Susan's like, I can't believe it took her this long.
Yeah, I understand.
Be a problem solver, people.
Just get to it. Yeah. Do you ever feel like I don't know, I've always run into this situation where it's like, look, it doesn't matter if we're doing the wrong thing, just do something, right? Because like I feel like oftentimes people are stuck. When they feel stuck, it's just they go, I don't know if I should go this way, if I should go north or south or east. It's like, listen, you know how you'll know for sure is if you start going south and then shit hits the fan If there's resistance in life, that's not how life works. At least for me, in my life, I've
Right.
like if I go south and there's resistance, then try west. And if there's some
Yeah.
resistance but not as much, then maybe it's north. And all of a sudden you go north and there's no resistance. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it all flows and it's all well, now we know the right direction. But the only way we found out is because we moved in the first place. Just move,
Yeah.
go, kick to it. Oh,
There's this guy that I really like named Donald Miller. He did that book called
yes.
Building a Story Brand, which is so brilliant,
Get
right?
close. Yeah, it's a great book.
Oh my God. I don't know the other ones. I just know that one because I like it a ton.
I've read multiple of his books. Actually, I haven't read the one that you're talking about. I was planning on it with a friend
Ooh,
of
it's
mine.
really good for marketing. But it's interesting because he's like, the thing that all successful people have in common is a bias toward being in action. Like, move the needle, do the thing. And I think, I mean, for me, part of what was so great about selling books, and I think there's some of that culture that I now as a professional would argue with, like, I'm not about sort of the endless grind. I think it's great if you're 19 years old. It's good to practice just working, right? Like, not talking yourself out of it, but just the habit of surrendering to what needs to be done that day and going to the next door, doing the next set of things. As an adult and a professional and somebody who understands human behavior, I think it's really important to find your way of doing things and being effective. But for me, one of the best things I got from selling books was I learned how to really surrender. There's a part of my personality that can just hyper focus on the work in front of me and sort of tune out everything else and shut down everything else and just do the thing that there is to be done. And that ability to be present in the moment and just, all the dance that you do in your head where you're trying to talk yourself out of the thing that you need to do. Like your mind is like scrambling, desperately trying to find a reason you don't have to pick up the phone or go to that next house. And 5 summers of going to the next house can make a huge difference because it's like a mode that you can access inside your own brain, right?
100%. 100%. My wife the other day was just telling me, she's like, God, you have this like thing where like you just do the thing that you say you're gonna do. Like you just go for it. I'm like, yeah, because I don't know, that's just how I've always been. Like I wrote this in like 2 months, but it was because I was like, I knew I was going to at some point, and then I was like, you know what? I think it's time. It's COVID. This is a good opportunity for me to do it. And I said, if I'm gonna do this, if I'm actually gonna do this, it has to be done quickly because the longer that it waits, the longer that it sits to cook. It's not good. It's not good for like my brain. I have to just go get it done and then move on to the next thing, right? And so that's it's action. It's like if the whole adage of like if not me, who? If not now, when? Right? Like why wouldn't I just go do it right now? Like I'm as young as I'll ever be. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny that you say that because a couple days ago, I did an event for a friend of mine. I did a thing on tactical confidence. And I was teaching them, right? So people talk about imposter syndrome all the time. And I'm like, that is such self-indulgent crap. Like, if you're worried about your focus is on the wrong thing, right? Like, if you and I were in a building and we look out and we see a car accident and somebody's laying in the street bleeding, we're not going to be like, oh, bummer, you're not a doctor and I'm not a doctor. That's too bad. Good luck, buddy. No, you're going to run. Now, if a doctor comes along, get out of the way, right? Like, let the doctor do the thing. But if you see somebody bleeding, you don't stop to worry about your own credentials. You just go and do whatever you can do to help. And I feel like part of where that got really cemented for me is my first year when I was a manager and my boss sat me down and, there's something like, because you don't know what you're doing and you're like, maybe I'm not the best person to manage this person, which, having a good manager, I feel like is bonus, right? Because you're either willing to do the work or you're not. And if you can just get through sales school, everything you have to know to do well, because plenty of people just have sales school and do just fine. Yes. But I remember Jeff Hahn telling me, he's like, the reason that I am the best, he's like, you tell this to people, you tell them the reason I'm the best manager in the world for you is that nobody cares more about your success than I do. And that thing where you think about what you're committed to and what you're like, what you want to support, what you want to have happen, and getting your confidence from that, and just being willing to show up, right? Like all that training we got about be a problem solver, or what do you think the answer is? Like, that's just not necessarily training that you get in other places. And a lot of people, when you first start at a company, they don't trust you enough to give you anything to ruin or damage or do wrong, right? You're too managed too tightly. But You have plenty of room to screw up on the book field.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's so good. I worked for a company called SPS. It's actually how I was able to where I learned how to publish a book. But they one of the key principles was fail fast, fail often, fail forward. And I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
what the book field really allows you to do. It's
Yeah.
just like because you have so many at bats that it's not about selling to everybody, but it's just about learning from each store and being like, all right,
Yep.
what did I do wrong? How much of that was in my control? How much of it was like
Right.
completely not on me? And you start sharpening it so quickly if you just I think that's the key to getting the 30 demos every day. It's not about like the habit necessarily. I mean, it is, but
Mm-hmm.
also in that is like if you go get 180 at bats, you're a lot more well informed as to what you need to do to tweak and fix than if you only go do 30 in the whole week.
See, I
You
get the
know?
feeling that you were a little more like you were willing to do more processing of how it was going for you. I was sort of like my first summer, especially just sort of hanging on for dear life most of the time. Like there was so much crying and so much snot. Like it was just, I mean, especially toward the end of the summer, because we sold in North Carolina that year. And my thing going into the summer, like you were talking about Dan Moore going through if you were captain of this and captain of that. And for me, the thing that got me in Dan's speech, he talked about um, that excuse that you make where like, well, if I really wanted to, I could have gotten a 4.0. If I really wanted to, I could have been blah, blah, blah. And man, I heard that and like, that horrifying moment where you're sure that they're talking about you and you're so found out and you're like,
Mm.
oh my God, you don't even notice that 3,000 people in the auditorium with you just had the same experience. And it really freaked me out. Like man, I think we were staying at probably La Quinta Inn or one of those little craptastic places just down the street from the company. And, I'll never forget because my
It's
sales
still
manager had us.
there.
Oh, I know. I saw it a few weeks ago. I have a client in Nashville and oh my God, even the smell of Landers Plaza, like I got a little nauseous. I was like, oh God. I mean, just even being in the parking lot, I could vividly remember doing approach contests with
Oh.
when I was a rookie, when other people, I was like, I gotta breathe. It's kind of like even now you go up to a door every now and then and there's toys on the porch and part of your stomach just clenches up like, mother of God, why are we here? And I still do the same thing. I turn to the side every single time. And if you're with someone, they're like, what are you
Oh.
doing? And you're like, 5 summers, 5 summers.
Yeah. You even have the same dog, like whatever.
Oh my God, it's so ridiculous, isn't it?
Oh, it's wild. So okay, hold on.
Oh yeah,
This
I
is so
forgot what we
fun.
were.
This is great.
Okay.
So
So
first
Dan,
summer, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
Dan
Dan
Moore.
does that thing, right? So then that night, my sales manager was like, "Go write a letter to yourself," blah blah blah. And I'm shook up, like I'm rattled. You know how like later you find out we did that on purpose. Like we push you to a breaking point so that you crack in sales school instead of like the week later on the field when there's nobody
Yeah,
around to help you. And funny
where it's
side story,
safe.
I had a team one year, the year I field managed in Missouri. We had a couple of rookies that just got so gung ho about everything that they learned all the sales talks and they knew every single thing in the book. So we had to like have an emergency meeting in sales school that year. Like, I don't know how we cracked these people because they did everything we told them to do. Like they were surveying classes for us.
Sharp.
It was fantastic. But I remember sitting on the outside of that stupid La Quinta Inn near this soda machine and there's dead bugs everywhere because it's Tennessee in the spring and it's gross and there's this weird orange light and I'm just sitting there sobbing for like an hour and a half and I know I'm supposed to go to bed and I'm like having this come to Jesus moment about my whole life and I realized that I was always sort of in the realm of the top people in any category but usually in the middle or in the bottom. So I was one of the best, but I was never the best because I would just kind of stop short of that. And all of the
Whoa.
sudden, I just was like, man, a lot of people probably wait their whole lives to figure out what they can count on themselves for. And I want to know now what I can count on myself for. Like I did grow up in a trailer in South Dakota and I didn't want that to be my future, right? Like my parents were incredibly hardworking, but I watched my mom stress out over the checkbook and the bank balance and all of that. And I was like, I don't want to live that life. So what are we doing? And I got really freaked out. And then I was like, I don't know how to make myself be number one, right? But I listened to everything they taught me and I was like, you know what I could do? I could outwork everybody. that I could do, and I could control that. If I did that, no matter how many books I sold, I would feel really good. And so that was the
Mm.
thing that I committed to for the summer, which turns out to be both the smartest thing I could have done and the stupidest thing I could have done. Because then you're just like you're always tied into just working as hard as you can. But it's funny because I mean, I really learned what I could depend on myself for, and that was a very pivotal life moment. I can still picture the bugs and the dirt and the stupid yellow light.
Isn't that wild? Like I think we all
Yeah,
have those moments that we can go back to and be like, that moment was like it changed my life. That it was
yeah,
that was the day where you can live your life and you can time your life from like since that moment and before that
yeah.
moment, right?
What's yours?
Um,
I know some people have probably heard the story before, but
oh no, actually no. I don't talk much about my experiences as you imagine,
oh,
because yeah, I think I had a couple of them. My why was a lot attached to my proving to myself that I could do hard things because so
hmm,
up to that point in my life, you know, I had a really good manager. Steve Thyden was my manager, and Yvette was my DSM. So you can imagine you get like some really good
oh,
nuggets.
God, I love her. I love her
She's
so
amazing.
much.
Love Yvette. Yeah, shout out Yvette. Love you lots. If you're listening, we'll tag you on this once this goes.
Call me when you're coming through for a ski trip. I miss you.
Yeah, you're amazing, Yvette. But yeah, like so up to this point, you know, we moved countries, right? And so, but that wasn't my choice, and I had
Yeah.
heart surgery, and that wasn't my choice. And so, all
Oh,
of these
wow.
things that happened in my life that were rough weren't up to me. Like it just happened; they happened to me. And so
Yeah.
when I'm sitting there, and you know, the money, the travel, and that was the original hook. But once I got the sales score, I realized like, hey, this is like a different thing
Right.
altogether. And and you know the feeling like you're just like this is
Like,
not.
ooh, travel doesn't sound important to me anymore.
Yeah, you stop caring about those things, you know? And
Yeah.
I remember I wrote the letter to myself and I was like, you're doing this because this is the first time you get to choose something hard that happens to you,
Mm,
and then you get to choose to just deal with it. You know, like this is completely on me. Nobody's
yeah.
making me be here. My parents didn't tell me to
Yeah.
be here, right? Nobody, life didn't happen to me. This is I got in my car and I drove my ass to Nashville and I'm here, right? And I
Yeah.
put this on myself. And so how do I handle this? Um and so I think the moment for me was just kind of realizing that nobody was going to come and rescue me, right? It was nobody's responsibility to come
Yep.
and do it for me. Nobody's going to knock on the doors for me. Nobody was going to um like
Save
be there.
you.
No, save me. Yeah, it was up to me. I'm my own fucking superhero, right? Put on the
Hmm.
damn cape, right? And
Yep.
walk like you're wearing a cape every day
Wow.
because nobody's coming for you. It's you. It's on you. And that sounds harsh, right? And there's
That should
circumstances
be
that
your
other
next
people.
book. Like, that's very powerful. Like, put on your cape and walk like you're wearing a cape every day. That's really good.
Thanks. Yeah, that was the realization. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen unless I do it. Like again,
Yeah.
like it's up to me.
Yep.
Things are out of my control. Shit's gonna happen. I know that people have told me that.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if I do well, I can look back without an ego and say I
Yeah.
did that. That was because of
Yes.
me. And if I do bad, I can look back for sure without
Yes.
an ego and go,
Yes.
that was also because of me. And I had good summers and bad, but that
Yeah.
responsibility of it being on me,
Yeah.
and it's empowering if you let it be. It gives you a sense of like, damn, well, if that's the case, you could do anything.
Yeah.
Literally, you could do anything. Just just commit. And so
Oh, I love
that
that.
was that was a moment for me. I was like, whoa, like I can do it. You know, I don't know.
And don't you find too, like, I don't think we knew this at the time, but, they taught us things like who you're becoming is gonna be a function of the books that you read and the people you spend the time with, right?
Yes. Yeah, I
And I don't
love
think
that.
any of us realized how big of a difference it makes to choose to be around people like the kind of people that go sell books for multiple summers.
Yeah.
Because when I look at my life now, I mean, so that my first summer, Virgie and I were on the same team. We actually had the number one team in the company. We broke a 30-year company record. That was the first time that Power ever beat education. Like,
Oh,
we
nice.
killed people. And I'm still friends with a good chunk of people that were on that team, which is extraordinary, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds kind of douchey to say, I guess, but sometimes I feel like I've got these really extraordinary people that are my close friends. And then I've got a bench of also really extraordinary people who would be my best friends if the bench weren't already full. And then there's like
Yeah.
a third tier, right? And then you meet a different book person who's now an entrepreneur running whatever it is that they're running. And you're like, wait, I want to be best friends with you too. Like, it's
Yeah.
the quality of people, and people who, I think of it like a 5-layer friendship, where you can talk about business and your spirituality and your commitment to your family and all these other things. Like, just just being part of that network, I think is wildly powerful. And
Oh,
you have to
it's
have kind of a good sense of humor, right? Like, you can't make it through the book field and be too uptight. You're just
oh,
not going to make it.
that theme. Well, and it's interesting. Oh, you are awesome. The theme of
No, you're awesome.
the the theme of identity has come up a lot in the show. I think that's been the most common thing in the last month, where it's been like some sort of, it's the same quote, but in a different dress and per episode, which has been like, don't take yourself too seriously, take what you're doing seriously type of vibes.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, and again, it's not that it sounds douchey. It's just, I think here's what it is for you to do well, or not even do not well as from the standpoint of selling a lot of books, but
Right.
for you to do well from a standpoint of like getting through the summer in a way that is sane to you, even if you don't sell a ton of
Yeah.
books, in a way that wasn't a struggle,
Yeah.
takes a certain kind of mentality, which belongs to a certain kind of person, which is
Yeah.
what we have in common, right? Because the people that quit, we don't identify with, not
Yeah.
because they're bad people or because we're good people. It has nothing to do with their character or
Yeah.
their, yeah, like nothing like that. But again, it goes back to like, you might have sold more books than I did total. I might have sold more books than you did total. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What really matters though is, hey, when it was week 11 on a Wednesday and you could have just stopped and you didn't,
Hmm.
I know what that's like. I also know what
Yep.
it's like to actually do quit, because I was completely off schedule my third summer and I was in a bad place, right? And
Yeah.
so I understand both sides of it, but looking back, it doesn't matter. Like, none of that stuff matters. What matters was like, you learn these things about yourself, and so I can trust that you know that. And
Yeah.
that rapport is so established so quickly,
Yep.
because it's like, oh, you sold 5 summers, okay, you know some shit that most people in the world probably don't know,
Yeah.
because they're too caught up on being identified or tied to their job or their
Yeah.
money or their like faith, even. Like, it just, not that those things aren't important, but like, there's more to it than that, and you learn that by going out and selling 5 summers. you know
Well, and if you sold for 5 summers, you probably whiffed it real hard at one summer, right? Like, for me, it was
yeah.
my second summer in Georgia. I mean, I literally still have, so I want to skip around a little bit. So you were talking about like
That's
that
fine.
sort of
It's your
sense of
podcast. You can do whatever
humor.
you want.
I know, right? I do what I want. I'm an 8 with a 7 wing. Suck it. No, just
Screw
kidding.
it.
Um,
Yes, but
I want
yes.
to get into the octagon with Will Metscher and pound him for. No, I'm just kidding. It's just fun to harass people.
If he's listening, I hope he's listening.
Why wouldn't he be listening? It's
He
episode
should be.
103. Like, this is going to be one of the ones that you're like, 103, baby. It was
What 102,
103
102,
quality.
102,
Oh,
102.
well, I don't know. I hope 103 is good too then, but
But we're
102 is
setting the
really going to set a
benchmark.
new standard for from which all others will be judged. But my boss, my first summer, he's like, Huck, what you want to, everybody called me Huck when I was in college, right? Which became at
Nice,
one
nice.
point very, very funny, because then people thought it was my first name. And they would look at me and they would go, Huck? And I would say, which, yeah, it was, yeah. But there's a ton of funny stories. That's another story for another time. But my boss said to me, he's like, what you want to have, Huck, is a relaxed sense of urgency. And I got urgency, right? Urgency I could do all day
Yeah.
long in my sleep. Relaxed sense of urgency, that took me till my fourth summer to figure out, where you're like intentional and moving, but you're not wound so tight you want to die or kill someone. Like, it was such a mental game. And I count myself really lucky that I had people along the way. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who probably should have sold 4 or 5 summers, but they didn't get that magic combo at the right time, right? Like, for a lot of us, we might have flunked out too, except for this PC by this person on this Sunday. And that's the thing that helped us over that one pivotal hump, right? Like, I think there's some people who we're going to gut it out no matter what. But I also
Yeah.
look at some of those orgs where everybody quit. Like your buddy was talking about one, right? He's like, yeah, everybody, there were like 3 of us left and we all became DSMs, or, and you're like, well, that's
Yeah.
not surprising. But it takes something to get all the way there, right? So
Yeah.
interesting.
I think also too, I mean, this is something I learned much later after I left Southwestern, but like
Yeah.
you kind of alluded to this, where it's like sometimes there's importance of balance. And I think that's something that Southwestern doesn't do as well to teach. Where
I don't think they even try to teach balance. They're not interested in balance. And I think that that's appropriate when you're 19. I think there's something to be said for going full tilt boogie at that age, but I don't think those same rules apply at this stage of life.
Yeah, no. Like sometimes like I'll be doing work and I look up, I'm like, man, I have a standing desk. I'm like, I've been standing here for like 6 hours straight. Like I should probably eat something. But then I'm eating and I'm like, shit, I'm behind. I should be doing stuff. And then I have to like consciously tell myself, no. You worked 6 straight hours.
Yeah.
Like eat. Watch TV. It's okay. Like go turn on a show, enjoy your meal, be present, be in the moment, and enjoy that. Because you're not in the book field. You don't have to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go take a cold shower. It's okay.
Oh,
right?
dude. Wait till you get to your 40s and maybe you have a little therapy in between now and then. It'll be perfect. You won't have that problem anymore.
This is therapy. Like the reason I do this is I get therapy 2 times a week talking about my Southwestern daddy issues. Some
other lunatic who sold books door to door. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the theories that I have that I've never actually tested out, I think that most people, we all sold with some of those unicorn people who could like sell, like, I mean, I followed Tanya Thomas was the #1 first year dealer my first summer. So she was #1, Virgie was #2. I was like #8. Sandy Doolittle, my roommate, was #14 on the back. Like we stacked the superstar book that year. We were so lucky to be in that kind of org. But my theory is that most people who are really, really great at sales, who are like unnaturally, like I followed Tanya once. She walked in, she said some stupid crap. Everybody bought the bag. And I was like, I don't even know what happened. Like, I didn't even learn anything because that didn't make any sense.
Like,
but
Matt Atchison's like that.
Oh my God, it's so frustrating. But I think, and now after seeing a bunch of different industries, I think people who are really good at sales, a lot of us have difficult childhoods. Like we have some kind of trauma in our childhood. We have maybe parents who weren't quite ready to be parents, or like, but my experience is that people have some underlying stuff that really drives them to be successful, and that also equips them with some special skill sets, like reading people. If you had some violence in your home, reading people wasn't just a good thing to be good at. It was a survival skill you needed to develop to make it out. And so I think my observation now looking back is that a lot of us were wound really tight. And it's kind of a miracle that as many of us made it through as did. And it's easy to understand how you can take those behaviors and pour them into a container of a single summer where that's all there is to focus on. And I'm not trying to bash it. I mean, for me, that the fact that everything else I've done in life, there's a lot of other factors that go into something, but I feel like the summers were uniquely secluded, right? It was just yours. You weren't doing 20 things like when you were at school or when you have a professional life. You were just selling books and managing people. It was all about the book field. Sometimes I tell people, it's like, if you went to summer camp, it's like summer camp. Like you're always at camp. It's not like you just worked when you were working. The whole thing was about that. And not much stuff in life is like that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And if people listening to this, they're about to go to their first summer, or you're in the middle, because people will listen to this like in June, right? And if you're listening to this, you're in the middle of summer, like there's people that always go, oh, I always remember when you'd recruit the person, they'd be like, oh, can I work out in the mornings before and after? And you're like, I mean,
you're like, that's adorable. No.
But no, that's not the point. No, just go do the shit out of it. If you can't focus on one thing for 3 months when you have no other responsibilities, like you have no kids, you're not married. Normally speaking, people aren't married at 19, right?
People
sometimes
in the South do it different than people do from the Midwest and our neck of the woods.
Yeah. But generally speaking, you got no other responsibilities. It's your summer break and you got nothing going on. So like you can totally learn to focus for 4 months and just go do the crap out of it. But really the way to squeeze all of the juice out of the summer in a Southwestern summer is you have to make it the only thing.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Yeah.
that's how you'll get the most out of it for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I
No
kind
doubt.
of sometimes when people ask me, I say that the thing that's interesting about Southwestern, you know those, I don't know if you ever had those. We used to throw them in a keg of beer and a bunch of vodka and some ice and make like they call them strip and go nakeds. So you take lemonade concentrate, beer,
What?
ice, and vodka. I know, right? And you just listen, it was South Dakota, okay? We didn't have a lot going on. This was,
One
you know, the
second.
internet was just becoming a thing. They're really good. They taste kind of like a Radler if you've ever been to Oktoberfest in Germany. They put a little lemonade in a lot of the beers. So good. But anyway,
Okay.
sidebar. So lemonade concentrate though is like it's the summer is like life concentrated because that's all
Yes.
you're up to, right? And normally when you're at school and you don't want to work on a paper, you can go down to the pub with your friends or go talk to your boyfriend or girlfriend or play a video game or get on social media. Like you have all these distractions. So you get to avoid the you that doesn't want to work on the paper. In the summer, what I try to explain to people is it's unique because it's so much more concentrated. So your highs are going to be higher and your lows are going to be lower and your hard things are going to be harder and your good things are going to be better because it's concentrated because that's all that you're up to. And that is both a
100%.
blessing and a curse. It's the reason that you can get so much out of it. Like even as an adult, it's really funny because now I'm a management consultant and people will say, well, how did you learn all this? Like they get really confused. They're like, how do you know how to do all this? And I look at them, I go, I'm highly trained. Like I sold
Yeah.
books. And when you sell books, it's like it's like the fruit flies of the business world. Because when you do research with fruit flies, you can get a whole bunch of generations in a short period of time because they have a small life cycle. When you sell books, the conversations you have in the spring, 2 weeks in whether or not those worked. The things you talk to people about on Sunday, by Monday night when the stats roll in whether or not your conversation was effective. So your feedback loops are faster and there's so many more of them. Like that kind of learning ability is, I mean, really extraordinary. And it can be a brutal grind, but I just I know it sounds cliche, but like I really do thank God every day that I sold books because it changed how I learn, how I attempt to do new things. And it just, I think people assume that after you sell books, you can just sort of like leapfrog the corporate ladder and just like, oh, I'm instantly successful. No, 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 no. You're not necessarily going to get the high job, right? But what it is going to do is help you progress through the ranks faster because some of the stuff that we learned as managers that we take for granted, I teach to people now.
It's wild. It's
And
wild.
they're
Yeah.
like, you're a genius. And I'm like, I know I am.
Yeah.
You should write more checks to me. That would be amazing. Please
Keep
do.
paying me. I know something you don't. Pay me.
Yes. I will teach you all of the secrets. I am the grandmaster.
Of course. But it's so funny because my brother talked to me about this. When was he was sitting with Dave Brown at some point. My brother's a DSM now, but
Nice.
at some point he was like sitting down with Dave Brown and he was like following him to go to like at a consult before he was supposed to meet with him. He went to a consulting meeting with him and whatever. So and he sits down with Dave and he's like, all right, here we go. Like he's about to do a whole presentation to this company and he's gonna teach him the business. This is the shit right here. This is like, oh, all right. And Dave Brown literally sits down and goes, all right.
Oops, sorry.
Schedule is your lifeline. Oh, did I lose you?
There we go.
Oh, okay, we're back. Yeah, you're back. You're good.
Keep going.
Yeah. So Dave Brown sits down and goes, all right, schedule is your lifeline to this like whole company. And Danny's like, my brother, he's like, what the hell? Like,
hang on.
This is the basics?
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Do you want me to log out and log back in?
Wait, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
Ooh, wait 1 sec. Could be me.
No, I think it's on my phone. See, it's a good thing we're problem solvers, or this could really be an issue. Should I log back out? Okay, I'll be right back. You keep telling the story, though. I'm going to just roll with it.
I'll keep telling. Can you hear me now?
Tatanka.
Sounds. Oh man, that's so funny. Now if you're joining us, thanks for joining us. There's a couple people that just joined. We are in the middle of a thick conversation about all the good things and bad things that came to the surface about our personalities selling books. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. We are happy to announce we're brought to you, as we wait for Alecia to come back, we're brought to you in part by Southwestern Real Estate. So as she gets back on, we'll kind of let her know that this is what we're doing. I'm getting feedback right now telling people telling us that we're being heard. So this is good. But shout out to Pat Roach and the folks over at Real Estate who are with us and support us. One of the very early on sponsors who joined us. Oh, we're back.
I can hear you again. Hallelujah.
Oh, we're back. I was just talking about Pat Roach.
Ooh, I love Pat Roach. Southwestern Real Estate, baby. Pat's a good guy.
He's the coolest guy. Like,
you know, if you buy a house
10.
from him, this is a little known fact. Okay. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Not everybody knows this. If you buy your house from Pat Roach, you actually get better looking the day you move in.
This is true.
It's a thing.
This is true. Yeah, my brother is much better looking than I am, but now it's not even close. He's bought multiple homes from Southwestern Real Estate.
That makes complete sense to me, man.
We used to be like neck and neck, and now I mean, I went downhill. Look at this. This is just, it's just the only thing stopping my hair from falling is the floor.
Listen, should we get you a wig? We can get you. I mean, what do we need to do here? I will pitch in.
No, I'll take ownership for it.
We're going to start a collection.
No, I'll take ownership for it. But I think it's true. I mean, honestly, more than anything, it turns out, like, have you noticed that like all of the good looking people work at Southwestern Real Estate as well? That's like kind of like every time we had Grant Greeter on here, I'm like, God, how are you so good looking at like
is Grant at Southwestern Real Estate?
Yeah. And he's the shit about it.
I think that's Botox.
No, man. I'm just
kidding. I have no idea. I'm just hazing Grant. But if you see him, ask him who does his Botox, just for fun.
I'll ask him. But the dude he's like wine. He gets better looking with age, you know.
Well, he's always been slick. Like Grant was like, you know, there are some people who are like charming. Grant was like charming with like a purpose. He had that deadly kind of charm. He could just get away with anything.
He's just, Grant Greeter. There you go. But did you know that we were sponsored by Southwestern Real Estate? Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard it on one of the other podcasts, and I thought that was so smart that somebody did that. And I ran into Pat Roach at a party at Todd McWhirter's house years ago. So it's hard to keep track of what everybody is up to, right? Like global domination sort of spreads out the troops.
Yeah, he's doing a good job there too. Like the everybody that we've had on the show from there, they're like rave. Like you never hear about real estate agents talking about like how, you know, something about like the I mean, just the culture, you know, just he likes to say it's 99% drama free, and we know that has got to be true. If you know him and you know how he would like to run that company, it's great. So on the side note, to finish that thought up, if you are if you know Alecia, if you know somebody, or if you're listening and you know somebody, or you yourself that you're listening,
I know a lot of people. Maybe I know somebody.
Send them over to Pat, who, if they're interested in being in real estate, it's a low barrier to entry because of that culture. And it's, reach out to us.
You know what? It's great that you said that, because I actually have a girlfriend that I know. We met on the Sizzler. She sold books out of Ohio State. And we met on the Sizzler trip. And she just the other day was like, hey, I think I might think about real estate now, and I should have her get in touch with Pat.
Yeah.
See, look at that.
Have her reach out to us, and they're guaranteed an interview if they sold books with Pat. So
there you go.
Yeah. So
see, look at that. We're solving problems. We're bringing people together. How many units have you sold so far? Let's have that call.
Yeah. What was your top week? What was your best summer?
Oh God. You know what's funny? I'm not even saying this to be coy. Like, who cares? And I don't really remember. So my first summer, I know my first summer I sold 3,800 units, and that was before we had computer stuff, and they, you know, most of that was honestly cookbooks. We used to sell these cookbooks called, God bless him, Joe Gustafson. I don't know whether I love him or hate him for this, but he'd been selling books for 3 summers, and my first summer I followed him my first week because he was the most fun guy on the book field, and my manager had an idea that I might need some help lightening up, which was 100% true. And Joe taught me this really obnoxious, it was a 3-unit sale for this stupid cookbook. And he would get all dramatic with it, right? Like, it's the great American encyclopedia of cooking. If you want to cook possum, if you want to, and it would just, it was this huge, big, grandiose thing. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, look at this poor hot mess of a girl melting on my porch trying to sell me some stupid cookbook. And then, of course, I had to deliver all those damn cookbooks. So, like, hours and hours of my life lost in North Carolina trying to figure out where to take a $12 cookbook, for the love of God. And all the shipping charges, amazing, right? But yeah, I don't even remember what we were talking about just now. I have such painful flashbacks. But most of the stuff, what did I sell? So my first summer I sold 3,800 because my goal was 3,000, and I sold 3,800, 3,870 or something. And then my second summer I did about the same because I was, oh God, did I suck. I actually have in my office to this day, my second summer we went to Georgia. Before I left Georgia, all I wanted that summer was to make a difference for other people, like people had made a difference for me. But nobody told me that you shouldn't just yell at people all the time to have them do well. Nobody gave me the heads up. It wasn't about controlling and correcting people. It was about supporting people. And so they put me in charge of stuff and I got my stuff done, right? But it wasn't pretty. So I struggled. And I was a pretty big failure. Like my team quit. My roommates quit. Like people were leaving me in droves. This should have been a sign that maybe we make an adjustment halfway through, but I didn't get it. And so before I left Georgia, I stopped in this field. I had one last cry and I scooped up some stupid Georgia dirt with my tears in it. And I put it in a glass jar that is still on my desk to this day.
No way.
Oh God. It's on the desk because I wanted a reminder because I had gotten so far, like I just wanted to help people the way they helped me. And I got so far off track. And it was years later, actually, thank God she said this woman, her name is Rachel Barber, amazing book chick. And she was a first year that year. And I was like, well, my first summer or my first summer as a manager was such a mess. Like I really did a lot of damage. And let's be clear, I did a lot of damage. A lot of us made stupid choices that summer in Georgia. I personally did a lot of damage. And Rachel, God bless her, she's like, Huck, I was on your stat line. She's like, everything I know about how to be a good book chick, I learned from you that first summer. Because she's like, you would cheer me on and help me, and it was such a extraordinary blessing because I've been carrying around all this weight. Like I ran into one of the girls on my team that quit that year here in Denver in a yoga studio. And I practically like started hyperventilating and I was like, oh my God, is that Carmen? Is that Carmen? Is that Carmen? And finally in the end, we're back in the room and I go, Carmen? And she's like, oh, Alecia. And she's like, no big deal. And I go, and I'm all heavy and sick. I go, hey, I just want to apologize to you because I never should have let you sell books that summer. You weren't ready. And she starts laughing and she goes, oh my God, I never should have sold books that summer. I was and she just like, it was not a big deal to her at all. And I've been carrying around all this guilt all these years. God. Oh my God. Yeah. So that was like, you just don't know, right? Yeah.
I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to. You could. This could be a story for another time, but maybe somebody out there needs to hear this. But let me know.
I like it. This is juicy. I want to hear.
Yeah. What happened? What happened your second summer specifically that you think that like was not good? Because maybe maybe somebody listening to this can avoid this mistake or whatever. Like, what specific things did you do that like allowed you to be like, shit, that was not a good move?
Yeah. Well, I'm a pretty emotional person, right? And everybody at Southwestern always wants you to be consistent, which I think is a great and fine goal. But if you are a really emotional person, your game is not to be consistent because you're not going to be consistent. You can do consistent effort and you can do consistent attitude, but your results are probably going to go up and down. You should be minimizing the bottom and maximizing the top. So I went out. I mean, I'd done really well my first summer. I was number 8 in first years. We killed it as a group. And I think we rolled in a little cocky, right? Like we had recruited a lot of people. I had put a bunch of sharp kids on my team, but I know for sure a couple things. So one, in my personal sales, I didn't work as hard as I did my first summer. And I think it was one of those things where my first summer, I'd been so clear that what there was to do was work that hard. And then my second summer, I just kind of got sucked into the quicksand. Like, it's not going well. You're struggling. Bad things are happening with your team. I mean, our org, we had our assistant OL quit like the 3rd or 4th week. It was his 4th summer.
Oof, that's rough.
And he was pivotal to how, so like a bunch of us made big mistakes. My boss sat me down at the end of the summer and he's like, here's what I screwed up. Here's what our OL screwed up. Here's what the AOL screwed up. Here's what you screwed up, Alecia, which was amazing, but brutal, right? And so I wasn't working as hard. I mean, Joel was gone. That broke my heart. He was one of the reasons I was successful my first summer. And that was a choice he had to make for himself. And then the team was falling apart. I know for sure what I did wrong as a manager because I've given this speech a zillion times to new managers. I tried to control and correct people because we try to lead like our parents and our teachers and our coaches lead, but that's not an appropriate model for two people who are college students selling books door to door. Like what you should be doing your B summer, your first year you're a manager, is supporting people and really leading by example. You should be outworking them, you should be out hustling them, and you should be there if they need to cry or puke or whatever, right? But confronting people, managing their choices, one thing to the next, I was just a big heavy weight on people when that was the last thing they needed. And then in our organization, they put me in charge of like supplies or something and collecting cash. So I would stand up in a Sunday meeting, which I now understand needs to be like a happy place away from all the stresses of the book field where you're just getting killed by Mrs. Jones every day. But I thought my job was to collect the cash. So I would stand up and like yell at people, if you don't pay me your $20 by this time, you're going to like, I was harsh and I was mean and I was intense because I knew how to get results that way. And I didn't know another way. And I never knew how much damage it would do. I thought the job was the task. And now I understand your job is the task and to manage the environment. You want to create an environment in which people can thrive. And that's how you get tasks done. It's a both and, it's not an either or. And so, and just really a pretty decent sized ego and a lack of humility. And it really just all created a big toxic soup. And I got to tell you, it was pretty soul crushing because there were people my first summer who had conversations with me that I can still recount to you now that still have altered the trajectory of my life and the choices I've made as a professional, things I've repeated to other people to help them. And I wanted to give that to somebody else. And so to fail at it and feel so horribly and to do the exact opposite of what I had intended, when I got back to campus, it took me a good 6 months to come out of my shell. And I'm really lucky that my boss was in the business of developing young people and was willing to give me another shot and helped sort of smooth the way with the people I sold books with because they were understandably not excited about having me around because I had been, a pretty harsh, out of control nut job. And, to my credit, I was a 20-year-old kid. I was in way over my head. I didn't have the training that I needed and our organization fell apart around me. But I also have the responsibility of the choices that I made and all that. And that was a really tough summer.
Sounds like a rough shit. Wow.
Like, and why was there a third, fourth, and fifth summer? That was again?
Well, it was either going to be that question or were you off schedule? But whatever, you pick.
No,
dealer's
I was
choice.
definitely off schedule. I mean, and
I was off schedule. My third summer.
I wasn't doing all the, I wasn't going and doing fun stuff off schedule, right? I was the stupid off schedule where you're just doing crap demos and counting them and like, I don't know why it's not working. Like, I mean, I'm really grateful in retrospect because that summer went so wrong that it taught me something really important about leadership, right? That I never forgot. And after that, I worked really, really hard. And, I didn't do a great job as a manager my third summer either. I mean, my roommates didn't quit and that was kind of a miracle, but they both hated me a pretty lot. You know what I mean? Like I was still not getting it. I thought it was and I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I wanted to control everything, right? So it's interesting now because now I work with CEOs and C-suite teams and you can't control them. And part of the reason I'm good with them is because I learned how to support people in their own development without controlling them, right? Like helping them in the direction they actually want to be helped in. And I can confront people with the best of them and have really hard conversations. But I mean, that was something I learned on the book field and I didn't learn it the easy way. I learned it the hard way.
It's rough. Yeah, that's and I'm glad that we're doing this as we kind of go through your career in the book business, because it makes sense chronologically for some reason, but it's working. And it's interesting. My third summer I was super off schedule, so I get it. Like I did the fun stuff though. That third summer I went to the movies. Oh yeah.
Kids, if you're listening and you're gonna go sell books, don't do the fun stuff or the dumb stuff. Just go knock on the next door.
Yeah.
It's better,
100%.
believe us. Yeah.
100%. 100%. However, some movies are really good to watch. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do it if you're going to do that. Don't go to sell books if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I ate shit that I mean, a lot of stuff externally, personally, we're going, like my parents were getting divorced, all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, that's never an excuse. You know what I mean? I think that's the lesson I learned.
Reasons and excuses are not the same things, right? And contributing factors, I feel like, is a fair thing to say, hey, my world was blowing up and I didn't necessarily handle that as well as I could have. And my world was actually blowing up. Like, that's a real thing. That's a thing.
Yeah. Shit does hit the fan for sure. Well, I mean, all in all, I think I should have sold only the 2 summers looking back, just because of the situation, or I should have skipped. I sold 4. I skipped after my third one that I was way off schedule. I skipped that next one, and then I came back for one more, and that one didn't go as hot either. But I wasn't on schedule. But I was like super not into it. Yeah.
You're so interesting. Why did you come back after skipping one, and how did you talk yourself into that?
That was rough. My brother talked me into it because he needed help. Yvette and Grant had just left. I actually did tell this story recently, but long story short is he was like, "Hey, I need help recruiting."
Yeah.
Because Grant and Yvette just left, and I'm in charge of the force. So I was like, "All right."
Wow.
Fine.
And he's probably pretty persuasive because he's like a DSM now. So those guys are slick. They know what to say.
He's sharp. He's sharp. Don't cut nobody, Denny. He's sharp. But he I don't know. I think my strength was definitely in the training. Like I'll still give, like my brother will still call me and be like, "Hey, I have a kid that needs like some like, psh, psh." Can you just call him on the phone on a Sunday?" Awesome. And I'll still call the kid and we'll talk for like, we'll do a PC for like an hour on a Sunday meeting after the Sunday meeting on this drive back. And then the kid will do well. So like my strength was always in the coaching and the training. I always did that part well.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do it anymore. Honestly, you get to the point where you're like,
it's a hard job.
This fucking sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. I mean, like I'm done.
I remember my 4th summer was probably my best. I don't remember if I did better or the same my 4th and 5th summer, but my 4th summer is when I really got relaxed sense of urgency. And I remember because it was so cute. I called my sales manager, the same guy who had recruited me one day. And I said, "Oh, by the way, Heather is in the car with me, one of my roommates," right? And he starts laughing and he goes, "Huck, I don't know how you're doing it." And I go, "What do you mean, Jeff?" And because I had 2 roommates that summer, one of them would cry every morning during executive exercises. She was sobbing all the way through exec. The other one, and she quit eventually, right? The other one, like followed me. We counted it up like something like an insane, like 30% of her summer, and somehow still managed to make Sizzler. So she would follow me for like half a day to get her rolling. And Jeff was like, "You're living in this nightmare headquarters." But what he didn't realize is, and I just kind of laughed because I was like, "Oh, I hadn't really noticed." Like I was just so dialed in. Like I was in the zone. I was selling a lot of books. I was working really hard. I was loving it. And I wasn't like, their stuff just didn't impact me. I just had my blinders on. I just did my thing. And I think I'd figured out some stuff about how to manage people. So I wasn't trying to micromanage their lives. Right. But I think my best summer is probably probably under 6,000. And maybe my best week, I was at 750, came close to hitting Mort, and then freaked myself out and crashed the last 3 days of the week, which that's brilliant. Right. I love that you have the little notes like, "Hey, here's what this is. Here's what this is."
Yeah, in case someone's listening, they don't know what Mort means. It's like, hey, that's what that means.
Oh, that's helpful. This is good quality programming here.
Damn right. If we're gonna do it right. That's the whole point of the whole Ponytails podcast is we do it right. We do it right. Dude. Yeah, that's legit. I think that's cool that you grew. I didn't. I like mine went down, but that's okay. Everybody has.
Listen. You can't help it that you were brilliant right out of the gates. That's not your fault. Come on, man.
I was so cool right off the gates. So good. and then I sucked really bad all the way after. It was not good. It was not good.
Funny side story. So I was in North Carolina, right? I'm in Davie County, North Carolina, which has seen book people for 30 years. And it's a small county. There's only 2 high schools, which for those of you who don't know, that's not a lot of territory for a whole summer. And the summer before, there was this guy named Jonathan Wright who had come through, and there was a varsity guy, a competing company, and they basically saw each other in Davie County and decided to split the territory. So they each got one high school district, and that was it. And so Jonathan, get this, dumps 8,000 units in my territory, in half of my territory before I get there.
Oh, shit.
And so I show up, and it's funny because you joke about it, right? But you're like, if you just spend enough time with Mrs. Jones, she will teach you how to be good at sales. So eventually my approach became, hi, my name's Alecia. I'm that good-looking college kid that's been talking to all the moms. Last year, they sent around a good-looking guy. Or I've been talking to all the families. Last year, they sent around a good-looking guy for all the moms. And I would wait, and they would all go, oh, yep. Because the high school girls told their parents, don't see the books unless I'm there. Like, you have to wait till I'm there because this hot college guy was coming through showing everybody books. And then the moms would always laugh, and they're like, oh, we got him last year. I'm like, yeah, everybody did. And then I'd say this, I go, I'm not a professional salesman like Jonathan was. I just get credit for showing these all.
Which you do.
Which you do. Like, that was legit. I really did get the college credit, but it was, oh my God. Yeah. So then later you're just like, yeah, I'm the sexy one, which is not something you can say when you're talking to moms and dads.
Although some mom and dads welcome that kind of talk. And then you're like, oh shit, you're the kind of people that was the right thing to say. And that's probably wrong. That's not good. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's not good.
It's a long, lonely summer in many different respects.
Yeah, there's a lot of lonely dads and lonely moms out in the book field. It got weird. That happened in my 3rd summer. This is an uncensored podcast, so I'm going to go for this.
Oh Lord, here we go.
I had a mom who was training to be a masseuse, and at the end of the summer, she owed me like $70 for the second half of the Explore and Learns.
Yeah,
and it's the end of the summer. You haven't seen someone your age.
Please don't go X or R rated here.
No. She was just like, hey, will you exchange a massage for books? And I was like, you know what? Fine. And I took it was just a massage. Yeah. Oh, listen, it's like 4 days into deliveries. Your back's hurting from carrying the damn books.
Dude.
And it's like the last delivery of the day. You're like, you know what? My back is.
Oh, you should totally take a massage.
Yeah, I'll take that.
3rd or 4th summer, I got bit by a dog. No, I sprained my ankle really bad. I had like a 3rd or 4th degree sprain, and I ended up on crutches. And so I had to have somebody come with me, and they would carry the box for me.
That's rough, man.
So, but I mean, one of the things that I really love, I mean, it's funny because now in Silicon Valley, right, they talk about minimum viable product like it's something they invented. And I'm like, yeah, it's called finding a way. It's called making shit happen. And it just is funny because a lot of times when I'm training people to be managers now, I pull just all the stuff we learned selling books, right? Like, you just tennis ball people. You put the problem back in their court. You ask them what they're going to do. Some of it is just, it's really extraordinary training when you think about it. And, we earned all the benefits all through life. Like, some of the units you collect when you're on the book field, but most of the units you sell on the book field, you collect later on in life.
Much, much later. I'm collecting them now. And it's working for me. All right. So, I feel like this is a good time to transition into what you're up to now, like kind of how you exited Southwestern and filling us into. But before we do that, I want to mention a couple of our other partners. Are you throwing a party anytime soon?
I am. I love parties. I'm always throwing parties, and I can never find good music. Do you have anything to help me?
How did you know? How many episodes have you watched? Holy shit.
I listened to some of the other podcasts. You said listen to some of the podcasts, so I listened to some of the. I'm coachable.
You were coachable.
I'm a book chick, man. Come on.
Wow. Well, listen, if you know somebody who needs to get into real estate, you already know how to get in touch with the 99% drama-free Pat Roach and Southwest Real Estate. But if you're throwing a party, dude, on a serious note, these guys did my wedding.
Yeah.
And it was legit. It was legit.
Yeah.
These guys are legit. Yeah. So yeah, if you were somebody listening, it's throwing an event. Martine and Lukasz is their name. Martine is actually currently they're actually both going back for their 4th and 5th summers. I want to make sure that that's correct, but Martine just sold like 10,000 units last summer, so it's legit. This is they're like the legit homeboys. You know what I'm talking about, when you make that connection with people, and you get
I'm
like
a
learn to
white
trust them.
girl from South Dakota. No, I don't know what
What?
you mean by legit homeboys. Like, that's not in my repertoire of life
Oh,
experience.
let me learn you, Alecia. Let me learn you. So what that means
Yes,
is,
yes, Captain Nebraska, please learn me about the
hey,
homies.
hey, I got the Colombian in me. I got that homie. I was born in South Bogota. That's the dangerous part of Bogota called Bogota.
Hang on. Is there a part of Bogota that's not the unsafe part of Bogota? Like, I
No,
thought that was sort of a,
it's all
geographic.
Yeah, I'm from the dangerous part of Colombia called South America. So I can say
be
homeboys.
Funny. It's wrong to laugh
is.
at that, but
It's
really
okay.
good.
You can laugh. I'm really funny, and I'm from South America, so it all
really funny, homie.
Oh man, this is a good show. I love this. I love what I do. But what I mean by that is they're book people, and because they're book people, there's something about them that you can trust. So anybody
they
who's
have
throwing an
social
event,
skills? They'll actually show up to your wedding, as opposed to
on
call
time?
you 3 weeks and say somebody else paid us more money, so we're not coming.
Yes, to all of that.
And if the equipment breaks down, they'll sort it out for you, so you don't have to be like running around your wedding or your parents' anniversary trying to find somebody's like Bluetooth speaker to hook up. Like, they'll handle it because they know how to solve problems. That sounds like a brilliant idea.
Yes, I'm gonna just clip this and play this every episode from now on. But yes, exactly that. Yeah.
Whenever people tell the joke I usually make around book people, especially if they're young, right? And I'm coming in to talk to people still going to the field, they'll be like, "Oh my God, you're amazing. How'd you do that?" And I'm like, 5 summers. 5 summers.
Yeah. So that's exactly right.
That's all you need. 5 summers.
And then also here's actually, this is one of my favorite people to talk about recently. This is one of our newest jockeys. Jockeys are our sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of our newest jockeys, but Greta Huerta. By the way, if you haven't listened to this episode, I would recommend going back to listen to this episode with Greta. Cardinal Senior Benefits is Quentin Roberts and Pedro Vega and Greta are the ones that are working here, but Greta is the one that's been our friend for a while since she was on the show, and I got a little soft spot for her as a Latino.
Aww.
She's like a Latina girl. She's Latina.
Wait,
badass.
Her name's Greta?
Yeah, Greta Huerta.
Oh, okay. I was like, I didn't think Greta was a Latina name, but I get it now. I'm with you.
Yeah, Huerta is the name, but she you ever meet those people when you're selling books that you're like, God, you were just such a freaking genuine human being that is just like, if we should just put a light on you, and we should just ask you for advice on how to deal with the Ukraine situation.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not a good person. What is that like? Like, how does it work?
Yes.
To just be kind all the time? Yes.
Yeah, she's like that. So basically she started working, she went on, she had a great career with Southwestern, and then she started working with Cardinal. They do like senior benefit life insurance, and you know what's more than that is just they just do like educational training on like financial advice. So the people that they're working with are people who are like really in need of someone like that, and she's got like the heart for it. More than though, she's a badass woman. She went into that company and broke the record 2 weeks in a row, and then all of a sudden everybody started producing. Like, she's the kind of person that she just showed up and just kind of like pulled everyone with.
She was like, okay, Greta's here. Let's do this.
Yes, exactly like that. She's such a cool person. So
you know what? I bet if you worked with Greta, you would probably also get good looking. Like, if you worked with Greta and you bought a house from Pat Roach, you might blow your own mind. You might not even recognize yourself in the mirror. You might get 10 pounds lighter and 20 pounds sexier like that.
And you could probably throw a party and have Martine and Lukasz DJ, and everybody would come celebrate with you.
You would want to sell a party, because all of a sudden, like, if you could just hang out with Greta and Pat, I feel like you'd be very successful. Like, whatever you're doing now, that's probably like at least an 1,100 unit bump in your capacity to be awesome.
Automatically.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, your parties have probably been lame. You should probably be inviting Greta and Pat just to be there. Your parties. Yeah.
Oh, she's a badass. So anyway,
that's awesome, man.
Greta's looking for people. So if the real estate person doesn't work out, or otherwise, if you have another friend that's like, hey, how do I change
people?
Oh yeah, she needs more people.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that is a
Yeah.
human being that I would follow into battle. So if
Yeah.
you're into that kind of
Well,
stuff, for sure.
and to your point, like part of what I would say is I think when people get done selling books, right? So I've been out a while. Um, there's a couple really specific mistakes that I see people make over and over again, right? One of them is they don't think about what kind of sales cycle actually works for them. Like Southwestern's a very short sales cycle when you're selling books. So if
Yes.
you loved selling books, but you hated recruiting, recruiting is a longer selling cycle. And if you're going to go into certain industries where you have a year-long selling cycle, that's going to kill you, right? So one thing is you don't think about your selling cycle, so you end up in the wrong kind of sales job if that's the path that you choose to go down. The other thing is you don't honestly hire yourself a coach. So little shout out to Will Metscher, even though I'm going to thrash him. We're going to get in a cage match and I'm just going to pound him, right?
I would
But
believe that. I'd put money on you.
dude, I'm small, but I'm mean and I fight dirty. Okay. So just that's the parameters, right?
I,
But they don't get a coach, right? So they're not learning new things. They don't, I've seen some people, they did great when they had accountability and then they left Southwestern, they didn't have it. They didn't have a cheerleader to cheer them on and they tank. And then the third thing is they don't put themselves with really good humans. So, like, if you're working with somebody like a Greta who comes in and not because she's necessarily trying to make something happen around her, but because of her own work ethic and her willingness to contribute and just do the work herself, you're not going to be able to be around somebody like her and not level up. Like, she sounds like one of those people
absolutely.
that if you're
She
on her
got you.
team, yeah, you're that's going to be the best version of you that comes up. So I
Yeah.
always talk to people and go, think about those three things, right? And if you don't know what you want to do, think about who you want to become and go be around people who are going to nurture you and teach you things. And you're going to become a better person by being around them. So,
One.
Greta, we
She's a
should go get
badass.
lunch when if you're in Denver, you call me. I'm going to take us out for drinks because I want some of the Greta magic too.
Yeah,
I'm smart.
she's
I've
so
surrounded
cool.
myself with great people.
She's so cool. I love Greta.
Yeah,
She's a badass. So and she's got you. So yeah, I
I
love
love
you know
that.
what the crazy thing about this is when we started like doing this thing and
Yeah,
we started to check into like, hey, how are we doing? Like how many people are we started getting
yeah,
offers from companies like, hey, we want to sponsor you. And we're like, no. We're gonna keep it in the
right.
house,
We're
in the
gonna have it be
family.
pure. We're gonna have it be pure.
And now I get to work with these people, and it's so
Aw,
fun to cheer them on and to like promote them. It's they believe in what we're doing, which is important, But
yeah,
I believe in what they're doing. It's just such a cool, like all of them, every single one of you. You meet them, and you're like, wow, I just want to look forward to meet with you. Just like I just want to see you once a week and talk about you because you're
yeah.
so awesome. That's pretty legit,
Well,
and I feel lucky. I feel lucky.
well, when I was listening to the other podcast, one of the things that really comes through, which is a unique thing that you have, is like I was listening and honestly, I kind of start out everything like I'm sort of a grumpy old man who just wants all the kids to get off my lawn, right? Like that's sort of my set point in the morning and then I work my like I like people and when I'm excited and happy, I'm excited and happy, but a lot of times I'm like grumpy old guy first thing and I was like, "Oh god, what must it be like to hear war stories like on a pod?" They've done 100 and some episodes, like that's a lot of war. And I mean, you know, I've sat around the table with book people and we've all told stories. So I've heard a lot of stories, I've told a lot of my own boring stories, right? But part of what I fell in love with is you just genuinely actually want to know. Like you're genuinely curious and you have like this enthusiasm for what people are up to. And that's one of the things I was talking to an old bookman and we were talking about how there are a lot of things from our Southwestern past that don't actually translate, right? Like so we sell books and we're like, oh, that was amazing, be positive, like do all the stuff. And then you get into whatever company you get in or you build your company and you're like, wait, some of this isn't the same because you don't necessarily know how to take it. Like there's principles and then there's practices, right? And what we do is we copy the practices and a lot of the practices you can't copy, right? We don't think about the principle underneath it. Like Southwestern, you can do be positive because if you really think about it, there's 14 layers of things designed to remove the crappy stuff that you're not excited about, right? Like designed to purge that negative emotion. Instead, we take that practice and we're like, don't puke on the people around you, be positive. And we don't create the other practices to get rid of the negative. And now you just have a lot of people gritting their teeth, like, yes, I'm happy. This is
Yes, 100%. I've talked about this on the show before. Oh,
Yeah.
you're on it. You're on it. Yeah.
See, we're like right there. You and me, right there.
Yeah. I basically, like, when I was training, and I remember this is even back when I trained my brother, I was like, listen, good self-talk is not everything's great. I'm awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basic.
Ooh, that's good.
Good self-talk is ownership, right? Like, so I
Yes.
gave this, I think
Ooh,
I talked about this. I talked about this in
Andres,
like,
I'm stealing that. That's really good.
well, thank you, but like I would train them and I'd be like, listen, it's people when it rains, for example, people be like,
Yeah.
it's liquid sunshine. Oh my God, it's so great. No, it's not. It fucking sucks. It sucks to sell in the rain. You're selling books
Right.
and you're showing books and in paper, and
In the
that's
rain.
terrible. So the better thing to do is be like, hey, you know what? This fucking sucks. It really does. It sucks to sell in the rain, but I am a man of my word, or a woman of my word, right?
Ooh.
And I said I was going to go do this regardless of the weather, regardless of how hard it
Yep.
was, regardless of how bad it got. And because of
Yep.
that, I'm going to look back on this day and say, hey, at least I did what I said I was going to do. And that integrity is going to be intact. And because I'm a man of integrity,
Right.
I'm going to go kick ass
Right.
today. How much more
Oh, I love
powerful
it.
is that to take ownership of your situation?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not glossing over stuff, right? It's not pretending. I used to do, when I was in North Carolina, my first summer, I used to say, hot summer days in North Carolina make for cool nights in Mexico. Like, here's what
That's
we're going to
right.
get out of this, right? Or I would say, this was my favorite one. I go, you know what? There's only 2 times when I sell a lot of books. One of them is when it's raining, and one of them is when it's not.
That's right. Yes, that's so
Like,
good.
one of them is when it's light outside, and one of them is when it's
Yes.
dark. And another one is that weird in between time when it's kind of light and it's kind of also dark. There's only
What is
2
it right
times
now?
I
Oh, it's
sell a lot of
dark.
books. Right.
Let's go sell a
There's
lot of
only
books. Yeah.
I only sell a lot of books when I'm selling a lot of books or when I'm not selling a lot of books. That's the only 2 times, right? Like, because
That's
your
right.
brain doesn't actually understand the negative. Like, I read this sports psychology thing about a basketball player. He was talking about what he says to himself when he's free throw shooting. And he's like, well, when I'm making a lot of shots, I tell myself I got this because I'm making a lot of shots. And the guy goes, well, what do you tell yourself when you're not making a lot of shots? He goes, I haven't been making a lot of shots, so I'm for sure going to make my next shot.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm due.
you
Yeah.
can just
That's
lie,
absolutely
right?
right.
When it's
Yeah. But it's
raining and when
true.
it's not. Yeah.
But
Oh
it's
my
true.
God, it works so great. I love that though. Good self-talk is ownership. That's really, see, that's the kind of stuff that, you know, I kind of feel like one of my friends was asking me about this podcast, and I was like, and he's like, oh, like you can give them some of your coaching. And I was like, no, this is everybody on this call is basically better than 99% of the professional coaches that I've ever met, right? Because they've actually coached someone in a difficult moment, right? Like, it's great if we're in a certification program and it's very polite and like, oh, Andres, here's what I, no, like, how do you get my head turned around when I've just been dumped and it's the middle of the summer and I had my worst week ever, and also I got dumped, right? Like, that's the moment when I feel like you really learn something. Or how do you take somebody who's really kicking butt and have them level up the next week? And I don't, I have some skepticism, again, grumpy old man, right? But about coaching programs. But good self-talk is ownership. I love that. It'd be so fun if we could just gather like the most sophisticated little nuggets, right? Like, we could just kind of throw them all in a bucket and sift through them and find the really, really juicy stuff like that. I feel like that would be so great because,
Oh, don't worry. There's gonna be
man,
video shorts coming through. There's video
oh,
shorts coming soon on our YouTube where you can just catch like the 15 minutes of a
dude,
certain segment of something we talked about, and then
oh, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
Oh, we need
yeah.
to make like cards, like little, pull your. So this is kind of random. Jeff Hawley was my sales manager, and Jeff was I owe a lot to that man, right? He was this incredible human being, and he was a real goofy guy. Like, he used to tell us, once I became a manager, he would kind of let you behind the curtain, and he's like, listen, this is what he would tell all the guys that we worked with. He's like, you want to wait if you're kind of not the hottest guy and you don't have like all the muscles and the, savoir faire. It's like, you want to wait until you have money to get married because you will get a much hotter wife. You will get a much hotter, cooler. And he did. And his wife is
He assesses life.
amazing.
He assesses
Yeah.
life.
But like, our first summer, he gave us this whole sheet, and I have it buried somewhere, but it was like all these weird sayings that he wanted you to work into your day. So like, at some point during the day, you had to be in a demo and say very things that now we would not have people say because they're very incorrect. But like, how you doing? Well, I'm working harder than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest.
Gold. That's a
Right?
soundbite. That's a soundbite. We're
Oh,
gonna have that in
dude.
a promo somewhere.
That's how hard you want to work, baby. Game on. Yeah. It'd be fun
That's
though if you
epic.
guys had like, Southwestern on demand, right? You just pull out one of the cards and it's all those little treasured nuggets from our days on the field.
It's funny how much similarity. Like you sold from 95
Yeah.
to 2000, right? But I mean, I
Yeah.
sold 2012 to 16, and like the things that translate to just
Yeah.
transcend I mean, because listen, when you were
Yeah.
selling,
Yeah.
and this is not to age you, this is not, but like
Listen, I still look good. It's not a big deal.
yeah. By the way, what
Age
are you, just a lot
age
of
is only
water?
a
What is it?
problem.
Is
No,
it
it's
Botox? What is, like, but water? What are you
of
doing?
course it's Botox. What do you
Okay,
like?
same.
Everybody gets Botox. There's just an
Rogaine, is that what
age.
I need? Is that
Or money, according to
falsely?
some philosophies. Like, I don't know. I think the
Well, then
hat's
in that
working for you.
case, if you know people who want to sponsor us, my,
We're gonna talk
my,
about that. Remember, I said we
oh
would
yeah,
talk
yes,
about.
that's right, that's right.
Listen. I'm an idea machine. My favorite thing is to like throw out a really simple idea and then go, bam, consulted.
Let's go. That's right. Um, but I mean, on that note, like the
Yeah.
things that were going on in 1995, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it was, things that were going on in 2012. Like we had a black president. Whoa. Right.
Yeah.
We were coming out of a crisis, right? The things that were
Yeah.
going on in 2016. None of that shit matters. Like it's
Yeah.
all the same. It's all I was talking to Jim Potts. Jim Potts is on the show in like episode 60
Yep.
something. And he sold in the 60s. I mean, he sold in
Yeah.
1968, right? Like he was like the person that ran his info was Spencer
Yeah.
Hayes.
Oh my God. Yep.
Right? That's wild. And so then,
Yeah.
but then he'll talk about like, oh yeah, and then we went to sales school. We took a cold shower. I'm like, holy shit! Like we're all doing that. We all did that. Like,
by the way,
ageless.
sidebar about cold showers that is so interesting. They're one of the ways that you can hit the reset button on your parasympathetic nervous system. Like,
Ooh,
so your
okay.
HRV, you can actually reset it by taking a cold shower, which is one of the ways you help your body decompress from stress. So it turns out that cold shower that they took just to like speed up the showers or be psycho or whatever that was, right? That actually does a thing for your mental well-being.
That's baller. That's amazing.
Just
That's
saying.
the coolest. That's the coolest.
Yeah. But the timelessness of it, I get what you're saying, right? Because
it's wild.
I mean, well, you look at like How to Win Friends and Influence People is still one of the best-selling books because some of the problems that you're dealing with are just fundamental. And I feel like selling books is a place where you get to, yes, you get to build your skills with other people, but for me especially, that was the first place I was ever introduced to the idea that you could and should watch how you talked to yourself, right? That you should be thoughtful about what you put into your brain and who you surround yourself with. I mean, that's an extraordinary idea that I feel like now is more common, right? We have all these social media channels and these gurus, and there's lots of people promoting that message, but that was not the message back in the day, right? That just wasn't a common thing. I had never encountered that before.
I think that's when talking about like moments where like light bulb hit, that was actually where it really blew up for me, was when I decided to like let go of the silliness. So my first week I did well, and I actually was like, I didn't know this, but I was one of the top rookies in the company. But this is a key moment, was my manager, one of the student managers, didn't make a big deal of how much I sold. I think I've told this story before, but she was like doing my bar because I didn't know what the hell was. I got recruited like the last week of the spring, so I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
You're
and
like,
she
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hit the 30 demos or I think or something, and she was like, "Oh, okay." And then I told her how many units, and she's like, "Okay," didn't make a big deal about it.
Oh,
like,
smart girl.
Like, it's huge for me. Like it really
ninja.
Like, honestly,
ninja.
So much. Yeah. But then I kind of plateaued at that rate, which was good, but because it was still more than like most first years were selling. But on a Monday, week 4, I'll never forget this. I remember looking at myself in the mirror. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what if I just out loud talk to myself? Like, what would happen? And I was like, you know what? I'm a good person. I'm gonna do great today. And I just decided to like let go of like whatever pride or ego or embarrassment I think that it was of like talking to myself out loud and by myself in the car. And holy shit, that week I went to 450, 565, and I started hitting PC and all this other stuff. And I get jumped because it was so
Yeah.
cool to like. And then I read the line. I think it was a book I was reading, and it was like, if the person that lived inside your head was sitting next to you, talking
Yeah.
and saying the things that you're saying to yourself, would you hug them or would you punch them? And it blew my mind. I was
Yeah.
like, that's
Yeah.
genius.
Have you read The Untethered Soul yet, by the way?
No, but that's on my list.
Dude,
I'll order it
move
on
it
Amazon.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
I'm about
Surrender
to start reading.
Experiment. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Well, I
Oh,
do it
dude.
right now. I'm
Yeah.
I'm about to start reading with my buddy. I'm gonna start reading Thinking Fast and Slow.
Oh, I have that book. I should read that too.
Yeah, we can do a Ponytails podcast book club. That'd be
Oh
so
my
fun.
God. Yeah.
What is it? What's the book called? You said Untethered Soul.
The Untethered Soul. So
Okay.
a book guy
What's it
named
about?
he wrote two books. One is The Untethered Soul and one's The Surrender Experiment. So The Untethered Soul is essentially a book about the voice in your head and your relationship to it.
Michael Singer.
Yeah, it'll melt your brain. But
Order now.
I read his second one first. It's called The Surrender Experiment. These are two books, by the way, out of the three that I would recommend for all book people. The Surrender Experiment, this guy was a hippie in the woods in Florida in like the 70s. And one day he has this big epiphany that he has a voice in his head that tells him what he should and shouldn't do and has an opinion about everything all day long, right? And sometimes they're contradictory. And so all day he's like running around based on what the voice says. And his epiphany is that life has been lifing along for a few billion years. But every day, based on this voice in my head that isn't even actually me, I go to war with life. And so he makes a decision that he's going to shut up the voice, like he's just going to ignore the voice and start surrendering to what he thinks life wants from him. And he does this experiment. He ends up running $1 billion company from the woods in Florida. It is a mind-boggling story.
I need to read this.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. So a book guy named Shane Blick and Alex Hart,
I love
they work
Shane.
together up in Boulder.
Yeah.
Shane.
Shane's awesome.
Love
Shane's
him.
a stud.
Yeah. He has me up. He's actually been and done some meditations with Michael Singer, but he and Alex Har, like I can't remember which one gave me which book, but they recommended those. And they
We need to
those
have
two
Michael
books
on the show.
Oh my God. Michael Singer?
You sold books, you said, right? You said you
No,
sold books?
no.
Oh,
Shane,
okay.
Shane sold books. You could have Shane on this show.
I sold with Shane. Yeah. We need to have Shane on the show. Yeah.
But, and then the third book that I would just give people for book people, because remember when we all read Og Mandino, right? And if you really read Og, it just like, I will greet this day with love in my heart. Like there's just some stuff I can still quote most of the third scroll if I get into a good rhythm, right? In the Orient, young bull, it's ridiculous.
Young bulls were tested in the arena.
In the arena, in a certain manner. Each is led to the arena and allowed to attack a pick. I mean, the whole damn thing.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
Can't find my keys.
That's a good type of brainwashing.
Right? Well, to your point though, so I mean, in my professional life now, I've studied a lot of different kinds of human behavior and brain science, all this stuff. You have neural pathways in your head that are very strong and they get reinforced, right? So let's say hypothetically that you had a crush on Ryan Junick in the 10th grade and your friends thought that he liked you. So they talked you into calling him and asking him out. And then he told you that not only did he not want to go out with you this Friday, basically he was never going to be available for that. And you were really horrified. Totally hypothetical example, right? But that might stick with you. But... Yeah. Well, Ryan was a handsome guy. What are you going to do? But
he's delicious.
Anytime that you trigger that memory, you reinforce its existence in your brain, like kind of like a cow path. For those of you from the Midwest, the neural pathway gets deeper. But if you stop sending energy down that pathway, then the neural pathway starts to fade and break up. So if you want your brain to be a friendlier place for your success, one of the things you can do is build neural pathways. And one of the ways you can do that is by reading a book or a section of a book over and over and over. Which is why reading Og Mandino 5 zillion times is great, because it creates a whole section of your brain dedicated to thinking that way. So my third book I always recommend for book people is one called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Have you read that one?
No, but that's coming to me. I literally just ordered the other book.
Dude,
you said, so what is it? What is it called?
The Obstacle is the Way.
Is the Way. Are these in audiobooks?
Yeah,
but it's probably better to read them.
Listen. everything's an audiobook. Don't worry about it. If you like audiobooks better, just listen to it on audio. It's fine.
By the way, my book is coming as an audiobook as a separate podcast.
Oh my God.
Just so you know.
That's going to,
Yeah.
I can't wait for that because you have a really interesting life story. Like that's going to be a whole thing. And I think, well, you do. I mean, you have kind of a crazy life story. But anyway, but this book, he's talking about Greek Stoicism, which instead of being fancy, let's just say that's the idea that whatever's in the way is actually your path to achieving what you want. So it's very much a control the controllables. Here's your mental stuff. So a few years ago, I got really sick. I got really broke. I worked for myself. It was a very, very ugly low point in my life. I read the chapter. He has a chapter called Follow the Process, Not the Prize. I read that chapter. It's like 5 little pages, right? It takes about 4.5 minutes, twice a day, 5 days a week for 7 straight months. Because my brain was not saying nice things to me, and I needed every day to sort of recalibrate and put my focus in a place that was really useful. So I think that thing about reading books, right? And reading books to retrain your brain is so, I mean, that is such an elegant solution to a whole myriad of really interesting problems that I feel like we don't always take advantage of.
Oh,
it's sexy,
so
right?
fun.
It's so sexy.
So good.
Good
this is so good.
With the ideas. Where's Lee's bell? I need Lee's bell.
Yeah. I said we should probably incorporate that into the show. Just be like, someone says something good. Oh, you get the bell. We should do that. I think we should incorporate that. Thank you, Lee, for
or
that.
Like a whistle.
God bless you, Lee.
You know,
just
celebrate
like
everything,
ding,
baby.
Ding, ding,
yeah. You
like
should just make it and be like, you should just be like, ding, ding, ding. Just yell it as loud as you can.
Ding, 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 ding. I always just snap. I snap.
Yeah, snaps are good too.
Shit.
Snaps
all right. Well, those books are on the way. I literally just ordered both of them, and I'm about to start. My buddy, we're reading Thinking Fast and Slow, and that's supposed to be a book about like the different like ways of like processing quick decisions. Have you read that before?
I haven't. It's on my shelf. It's been. If it shows up a couple more times, I'll have to. I'm actually right now. I'm reading. Stephen King wrote a book on writing that is supposed to be one of the all-time classics. So like in January, I read a bunch of the, like David Ogilvy and a bunch of the marketing and sales books, the like big classics in that area.
Miller.
And I read that a long time ago. His book is really good.
I'm gonna have to see. Gosh, I have so many books I need to read.
If you're a book person and you're used to selling, the other thing I think makes a big difference for people is to realize that selling products is very different than selling services.
100%.
Like, right? And sometimes I laugh because I'm like, you guys, all the stuff in the marketplace, most of it about sales is recycled crap from insurance salesmen in the 1800s.
100%.
It's literally, it's literally all of that stuff. And if you want to sell professional services, that's a whole different framework. It's buyer controlled, not seller controlled.
100%.
It's about giving education and options and recommendations. Yeah. I learned some stuff about selling services inside having a boutique consulting firm that is useful.
I think
hang on.
You're so smart.
I feel like you're about to preach. I feel like this is the moment we silence the choir because this is a big one. Lay it on us.
I'm not that smart. You're the one that's laying down the wisdom. I don't know. To me, I don't know. Like when people ask me, like, why was it so different? Like, or like to describe what I learned about the key to the Southwestern cycle of sales is the buying atmosphere. To me, like it's the moment when you give up the power to the client and you say, listen, my goal is not to get you to buy something. My wife, when we first started dating, she was like, oh, you must be super persuasive. I'm like, no, actually, no, I suck at being persuasive. You know what I'm good at is getting told no really fast or yes really fast. And that's the difference. Most people think that salespeople, and really most salespeople are super like good ones that don't work with Southwestern, in my opinion, are like really persuasive. But in a way that it implies that you're getting people to do something that they don't necessarily want to do, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing, but it can be dangerous. For me, it's like this. Dude, there are 1 million people. There's actually 330 million people in the United States. Okay. That means, statistically speaking, even if you suck really, really, really bad, really, really bad, but you just go talk to as many of them as possible, you're going to succeed. And along the way, you might learn some things that make you really good and make you a master at your craft. But besides that, before we even get to the fact that you get better, just the idea of like, let's just say you suck the same every single time and you just talk to 100,000 people and your closing percentage is 1%, right? 100,000 people, 1%, you sold to 1,000 people. My closing percentage is 90%, but I talked to 500 people, right? That's 450 people. You still beat me. Why? Because you saw more people, right? And so the key is in the buying atmosphere, because you can genuinely, and the key word is like underline, highlight,
genuinely,
capitalize, right? Is genuinely tell someone, hey, listen, if you do not want this, you need to tell me as soon as you know.
Yeah.
Because that's going to save you time. It's going to save me time. And honestly, I need that, because then once I understand that it's a numbers game, then the buying atmosphere is the most important part, because that's actually the huge part of my sales cycle that helps me save time, which means I can see more people with the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So the real key is like, hey, as soon as you know, please, for everything that's good and the love of God, tell me no.
In the name of all that is holy and sacred, chicken noodle soup and pot pies.
I don't even care. Let me just move on. Let me just move on to the next one. And then I promise you, I'll leave you in a good mood. I'll tell you a joke, right? What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear. Bye. And then you just move on, right? Like, that's how you do it.
Okay.
That's it.
In professional services, here's the ninja move that I use, that I learned, which nobody else in my industry does, or at least in my head, nobody else does, right? So I sell, my stuff is large, big packages, right? There's lots of zeros involved, and it's a big commitment because we're going to work together for a whole year, right? So I think of selling products as like getting somebody to go on a date with you. You just be whoever you got to be to get them one dinner. That's it, right?
You're like a ransom note cut off different letters. You're just trying to figure out like who you are.
Right. If you're selling professional services and it's going to be an extended contract, I need it to actually be a fit. It's like a marriage. So if I snow you and I sell you and I persuade you, that's bad for both of us, right? So I do a thing in my buying atmosphere now where I just look at people and I go, okay, so, and I learned a lot about how to create the right kind of packages and how that process should work. There's things you can actually learn, but I just say to people, listen, I'm gonna create multiple options for you. I'm gonna write up a nice proposal so they're in that range that we talked about. I'll give you some options that are a little less and a little more, and then we'll talk about it on the phone. I'll answer any questions that you have, and then you should think about it. You should like take some time. You should talk to your team. You should give it a few days. Like, I'm not going anywhere. You should really trust yourself. And if you look at your team and you can go, okay, if we do these things, it makes sense. We're going to get this ROI that she's talking about. Then you're going to know that it's a good thing and we should move forward. And if you don't, you shouldn't. But you should trust yourself. It's actually, now that I think about it, it's the advanced version of the bathroom close. You remember that one?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the bathroom. You take your time.
Real quick, I'm going to just run to the bathroom. You guys talk it over. Let me know what you think when I get back, okay? I didn't realize
and you come
all
back
these years,
and they tell you yes or no.
Right. No, they always say yes after the bathroom.
Yeah, they always say yes.
What kind of bathroom close are you doing? But I just realized, all these years later, what I'm actually doing is not this fancy thing I invented. I'm still just doing the bathroom close. So that feels 100%. Like a win.
Yeah. Same thing with the podcast. I mean, again, I told you we're talking to Quentin Roberts, and he's the guy that's pretty much running all of where Greta works. And he liked what we were doing. And I literally was like, listen, and I told this to Pat, I've told this to Martine, I've told this to EnLight, all of our sponsors, like, listen, I don't want you to put money into this because I can't guarantee that you're going to get recruits. I can't guarantee that you're going to get any of that stuff, but I can tell you, we're going to talk really well about you and people are going to like hear it over and over. And then it's going to be a good branding move. But here's the thing, like, more besides all that shit, that doesn't matter. You got to believe in what we're doing. Like, you gotta like what we're doing, because there's gonna be shows that we have that are gonna be more saucy. Some of them are gonna be more professional. Some of them are gonna be outrageous. Some of them are gonna be funny.
You gotta be all the way on board.
And if you don't like, I need you to go listen to our show. Go listen to our episodes, not for the ads. Go listen to what we have, and I'll send them like different like vibes of different episodes. Be like, you gotta believe in what we're doing, and I believe in what you're doing. So that part checks out, because otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you. But like, if you don't believe in us, we shouldn't even, like, because in 4 months from now, you're going to be unhappy about what somebody's going to come on the show. You're going to be upset. right? And it's not going to work for both of us. And then it's just a headache. And then we end up breaking up in business, which is like worse than an actual breakup, because then it's like bad taste in your mouth forever because it involved money. So it feels more like a divorce. Like, avoid that. Don't do that.
You're like, this is how I negative sell this.
Yeah, and it's not even, but I guess it is a negative sell, but at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I know that all the people that are sponsors with us, they love what we're doing. Yeah. And I love what I'm doing. So that's the thing we have in common, and it works so well.
And to your point, right? It is fun to do business with people who sold books. Like, it's fun to be around people who get it. It's fun to talk to people who have that common experience, because it's such a, it is, I mean, it's not the same as being a soldier, right? Like, I know guys who are Navy SEALs. It's not the same, right? But that kind of, it's such a unique experience that no matter how many stories you tell people that love you that weren't there, they're not going to get it, right? And you can look at almost anybody and just say, this was my Lee had his dirt pile moment, right? Mine happened on a dock in North Carolina. Like, everybody knows what those moments are. Everybody gets it when you say that, and they get that in that moment you made the choice that made a difference. And I think it's really hard to be a manager if you don't, at some level, give a damn about developing people, contributing back, right? Anybody that I know, and it is possible to stay too long at Southwestern, right? So I love Southwestern. I'm very grateful for what I was given. I think a lot of good things happen in the world. And FYI, team, you can make a difference in a lot of places, like lots of places. The one drawback, I had a friend point this out. He's like, Southwestern is the only kind of business where you don't get exposed to other businesses.
Yes.
Right? So you never find out how it's supposed to work in all these other places. And that's a big gap, because once you get a feel for it, you're like, oh, all this makes sense. You know what I mean? And I think even sales managers who are, I mean, good grief, my manager, Jeff Hahn, my senior year, I was getting ready to graduate, and then my best friend and I were going to go to Europe and do some backpacking, right? Like, that's the dreams, make your money in the summer and then go to Europe that fall. And Hahn was dead set on me splitting it up. He's like, nope, you're like, do this and then field manage, recruit full time in the spring, and just do that for 2 years and graduate in 2 years instead of at the end of this year. And so he walks me into Fred Prevost's office, who was one of the old OGs. And Prevost sits me down, and, Jeff sends me in there because he wants Prevost to talk me into it. And Prevost goes, so, and I go, yeah, I want to sell books. And then Megan and I are going to Europe. And he goes, cool, here's what you should visit. And we talked for like an hour. And then I walk out, and Han's sitting out in front of his office, like a puppy, like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I go, Fred and I both think that I should graduate at the end of this year. And Jeff was so crushed.
That's brutal.
He meant well, right? But what he thought was the best thing for me was really the best thing for him. And maybe it would have also been awesome for me, but it wasn't my path, right? It wasn't a good fit. And I think you got to know when to stay, and you got to know when to go. And if you're staying because you're scared to try something else, that's not a good reason. And that's going to lead to some craptastic summers. Like, get your head straight. If you're doing it for good reasons or bad, go all the way. Go full tilt boogie. You don't want to halfway on the book field is a bad way to do the book field. The book field does not enjoy that, and she will punish you.
Summer 4, 3 and 4 for me, and 100% from experience, I can tell you are on the money, my lady. You are Alecia. You are, or Huck, as you are so affectionately called. You're on the money. So, okay, all right, hold on. This is supposed to be the section where we talk about what you're doing now. So what happened?
Ooh.
So now, on the topic, you left. Sounds like you left, and then walk me through. So 2000 to 2022 isn't that long. Sure. Isn't that long?
Yeah.
But walk me through what happened and what are you up to now? I'm so curious.
Oh, my job now is so cool. So let's see. So I quit selling books, and I had some family stuff. Like, I have some trauma and crazy in my background that just kind of bubbled up to the surface. And so God bless Jeff Hawley. He sat me down and he was like, you're done. I was supposed to field manage one more year at Mizzou. That's what I did my last year selling books. And he's like, you're done. You need to go. Tell me, you got 3 days. Tell me where, or he's 1 week. Tell me where you're going to live and which therapist you're going to see. And thank God he was willing to say something like that. I mean, it was bad. I got some serious stuff in my past. And so it was really a blessing that he said that. But I was, you know, kind of unmoored at that point because my plan was to go back to Mizzou and recruit, and it's ego and all this stuff, right? So I waited tables. I ended up getting recruited by a corporate company. They were hilarious. I sat down with this HR director and she said, okay, so you get this many days off a year. And I said, yeah, but I'm in sales. So like, as long as I hit my numbers, nobody really cares what I do, right? And she goes, you get this many days off a year. And I was like, ooh, I'm not selling books anymore. This might not have been the best move. And then my sales manager, Jerry, old Johnson and Johnson guy, literally at the end of a meeting goes, you don't want, ends the meeting with this. This is the thing he sends everybody home on. You don't want to be the low-hanging fruit at the end of the month. And God bless me, I almost raised my cute little 22-year-old hand and was like, Jerry, I don't know if you know this, but you're supposed to end sales meetings on a high note. Like you want to build people up. You want to send them out. Thank God I didn't
this
say
is what
that.
I'm used to.
Oh my God, it was bad. So eventually I got fired. Like they promised me one thing, they changed all the comp, they moved my products, like all the things people do that aren't great in a company that's not doing well. And so I bounced around a little bit. I actually did a short stint with Great American. Mike Weber was doing work with a lot of people saw Mike, who's a really good human being, but Mike wanted somebody who would be like another Mike, which is go put your head down, do a ton of work, sell $200,000 worth of programs, and then you can have a seat at the table. And I would have only sold $200,000 worth of programs because I had a seat at the table. Like I still had a decent amount of ego. And so I also got fired from Southwestern. Technically, I'm in that happy crew. And, you know, it took a little while, but eventually I looked around and I was down working with VDisain in Texas. And I saw a woman named Linda Schwader Smith, who's an old book chick, old school, not old person, but she was doing a goal setting workshop at that spring production meeting. And I heard that she charged $5,000 for it. And so again, if you're not noticing, ego is a consistent theme here in my story. I watched her do that and I thought, if she can get 5, I can get 10. I was like, I should be a consultant.
I relate.
Oh,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Like, are we gonna go to Claire's and get matching BFF bracelets? Like
that damn ego.
French fries?
Oh,
yeah. It's a thing, right? And so, you know, it took me a little while. I did a couple things and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. I had no money. I had no contacts. I'd never been to a networking meeting. I didn't know anything about sales except direct sales. I didn't know how to put together a contract and I had no savings or experience of any kind. And I was like, okay, I'll be a consultant. Woohoo. And, it went really badly for a while, right? Like I was good. I'm a good coach. I've always been adept at my job, but building your own business, it's not like it was in Southwestern, right? We kind of got suckered because they say you run your own business and technically that's true, but really you're running your own franchise and that's a different kind of thing. Yeah. So, you know, it took me and people were like, oh, you should do sales stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to do sales. I don't want to do that. It took me I started my company in 2004 and I really struggled for a while. And it wasn't until 2013, I would say, that I really found my niche. I was working with an executive team at a manufacturing company. And while I was there, they had gotten really big kind of overnight, right? And for some reason, all the problems they had sounded familiar. They thought they needed help with communication among that executive team. And the longer I was there, I was like, it's not just that though. And then I recognized I had been through the same kind of curve actually when VDisain and her group got really big, really fast. If you don't build systems and processes along the way, right? Some people that are listening know what scale is and you know how to scale a business, right? You got to build systems and processes. If you don't know what scale is and you just work really hard and things get really big, it is a mind-melting experience because all of a sudden you have more money than you had before. You have all these people everywhere. You keep hiring more people to do the work, but for some reason, everything slows down and it's harder and harder to get good work out the door. And then you're driving yourself crazy because you don't understand why nobody will step up or more people won't step up. And you kind of miss the days when you're small, but you can't just go back to when you're small because now you're big and now you got to pay big bills. So it's this very crunchy time and some businesses just don't make it through that. So when I worked with that manufacturing company, I recognized that pattern and I was like, oh, there must be 1 million books about this. And there's not really. There's books that talk about scale, but they don't really a lot of us know Michael Gerber and the E-Myth, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
But
Have you read Scaling Up?
yeah, so there are good books like
Yeah.
that, but like Gerber is great if you're starting out, but if you've already got
Yes.
300 employees,
It's too
what
late.
the, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's way too
Yes.
late.
Yes.
So
Yes. 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 Yes.
so
I'm
my
with you.
specialty that I've built over the years is I specialize in working with the leadership, like the executive teams of fast growing companies who need to build that infrastructure on the fly. So the plane's in the air and we're already moving, and now we got to rebuild the plane. And that's three big things that they have to learn. One of them is how to manage people, because we
Yeah.
promote people, right? Most people who sold books and managed somebody got better management training than the average six-figure executive. 100%. 100%. So I teach them how you hold somebody accountable, right? How you have a conversation without destroying a relationship, how you celebrate with people, right? What it looks like to delegate effectively or track and manage work. All these critical management skills is one thing. And then the second thing is I help them build systems and processes and tools,
Oh, yes.
and I teach them how that should work, right? So like data is one of the things that breaks down, because when you're small, you just run around and talk to everybody and you're like, "Oh, how's it going?" And that's fine when you're small. But when you've got, you go from 3 people in a garage to 300 people in 2 different locations, you can't manage by touch that way anymore. So you lose track of the data. If you don't find a way or build a tool to gather it, like I worked with an engineering firm and they had usually about 70 open projects. And I said, okay, well, how do you find out how they're doing? And they're like, we go in the computer and we look up the project and we check the stuff. And so what they're doing is managing it at 100%, which the only person who should be doing that is the person who actually is working on the project. So I'll teach them things like the 110 and 1% rule, where the person working on it knows it at 100. They turn in a report that's like 10% to their manager, just enough to show me if there's a problem. And then that person turns in 1%, which is just enough to show the person above them that there's a problem. So it's building that kind of stuff and teaching them those skills. And then the third thing is your leadership team is where you either make or lose a shit ton of money, just to put it really bluntly. So
Yeah.
if they don't know how to operate as a team, right? If you just have big mama, big daddy at the front of the room and we got to run every decision through that person, now you have just expensive minions because they're just running around doing your bidding. So I work with teams and teach them how to do things like, report on what's going on in their group, how to disagree about things, how to prioritize, how to plan, how to hold each other accountable to executing the work, how to, we think wars are won by shock and awe. They're won by logistics. They're won by who's smarter about their resources, right? So by the time I'm done with a team, we've worked together for a year, but they learn how to do all that stuff and they learn how to do it together. Because one of the things I've discovered is we tend to send people away, right? Or you read a book, but the 3 people you work with didn't read that book and they don't get it. So you come back from the seminar, from the book, and you're like, you're all hopped up and you can't get them to do the thing because they didn't have the same experience. If you take the whole team and you train them together, you shorten the learning curve, you speed up the results, and you kick a lot more butt. Like and we fix problems along the way. So it's super sexy. And the
Wow.
ROI is like disgusting. It's so big.
That is so
Isn't that
fucking
crazy?
cool. That is
That's
so
my
cool.
job. That's like, yeah.
That is so cool. God. So what do I say about this? There's so many things I want to say about this. First of all, like I think the first thing I want to say about this is something that this is like books 2.0, right? Because like once you go sell books, you learn all these things. But then like one of the things that it was really very apparent to me almost immediately after I decided I'm not coming back to sell any more books.
Yeah.
Was there's a lot of things about running a business, quote unquote, that you do not get taught. Like not even like what you're talking about. Let's just look at it like the legal side of things. You ask most book DSMs how to start an LLC, and they're like, "What's an LLC?" And you're like, "Holy shit! Like, how do you not know that? Like, if you run a business, you got to know that." But they don't ever teach that at sales school.
Also, by the way, if you're registered as an LLC, you can still file as an S corp, and you really, really should.
Yes.
Just FYI.
That's what we're doing. Just FYI.
Legit.
Yeah.
Save you so much money.
accountants and lawyers are the two things that you can't spend too much money on because they will pay for themselves eventually.
Oh my
And
God.
so
Get a controller, get a CFO, even if it's a fractional one, way before you think you need it. It will save you so much money.
when I launched the LLC in November for the Ponytails podcast, the two things I spent the most money on, personally, was that, and so as CFO, and then like he's not directly under us, but he, like, the guy handles this, and he's like, you need to do an S corp, especially if you're going to do sponsorships like this. And I was like, all right, it's like I you know more than I do. And then the lawyer.
Have you trademarked ponytails yet?
Yes.
Nice.
So the trademark's supposed to be coming back at the end of actually this month. It takes like 6 months because of COVID, but we launched it in September. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good.
Oh yeah. I'm on it.
Like a grown up, like a big old grown up.
That's like a big ass, like an adult, right? So, but the point is like, that's the stuff you don't really learn in Southwestern. So like that. And then the other part of it is everything that you just said, because what happens is people get into this, they leave Southwestern and they're super successful, undoubtedly, because they have these skills, but then all of a sudden they get too big for their own like management. And so I read Scaling Up, and there was so much stuff in there about like creating systems. Everything was about creating systems. I have the way that we run the business here is like to keep it private. Like there's basically focused on systems. The whole idea, and what I told my team is like, we should have it so well systematized that like if we were all sick with COVID for a month, so 4 other people could come in and just follow the script and nothing would change. That's the goal. Right now we're short on that, right? But that's the whole idea. Nobody taught me that except for the books that I read, and I was like, I'm glad that that's a book I read. But the fact that you're doing that live is so valuable. Holy shit, that is so cool. That is so cool that you're doing that. Good for you.
And if you, thank you, because I made it all up, right?
That's badass. That's so cool.
If you liked Scaling Up, you might also like Traction and that whole world, which is, it's very formulaic, right? So the interesting thing, so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, Alecia has interesting ideas, maybe I want to hire her. Here's how you know if you want to hire me or somebody else. Traction is really great. It's very formulaic. So if you just want the formula and you don't care about like the thing, most of my clients, or all of my clients, they have a thing in their business that makes them special. And it is a thing that they will fight for. Like, my people don't want to, quote, go corporate, not for any amount of money. They're not opposed to building structures, but they are very, very opposed to structures getting in the way of them being who they want to be and doing what they want to do. Like, it's a big deal for them. So when I work with people, we customize everything. Like, we're not trying to run you through the same meat grinders so you look just like everybody else and you have, like, in Traction, there's a thing called your rocks. And I'm like, this is what we got. Entrepreneurialism is one of the sexiest things on the planet. It's so badass. It's so much fun. And what you came up with as a thing to have people grapple with is, here's my rock. Here's how I did with my rock. Like, it's insane. So it's kind of like, for me, Traction is like, you know, a used Honda minivan that kind of smells like Cheerio puke, and it'll get you there, but it doesn't have the sex appeal. And when I work with companies, we build everything around your culture. So we don't squish what makes you special. We protect it and we build structures around it so that you can actually have it. And I think, I mean, for me, I mean, of course I'm biased, right? But I think that is such a big deal because a lot of us, we pour a lot of ourselves into our business. We have a thing we want it to do. We have a thing that it stands for. Like, one of my happiest moments, I had a CEO that I work with, and he's like, one of the best things I've learned from you, Alecia, is that you don't have to do it the way everybody else does it. Like, there's a ton of different ways to achieve a result, and you should find the way that really works for you. Like, because I believe you should be able to win as you. One of the things that was hard for me in Southwestern, and I think this comes from that old, you know, insurance salesman mentality, is like, okay, you find the person who was successful, you copy what they did, you just be them, right? Which is fine. And maybe when you're 19 and you're selling books door to door, that's great. But as you get older, it doesn't work that way. Different people have a success type, almost like a blood type. So if yours is the same as mine, and apparently it is, you and I will really vibe off each other, and I can copy stuff that you do and that'll work for me. But if I'm trying to copy something that somebody else does, like, there were people on the book field that never listened to the radio. They didn't sing. They didn't like, they were just very focused. That worked for them, but that wasn't a good fit for me because I needed to continually be lightening up. So if I
Yes.
just copied them, that doesn't work. And I think all the work I've put into building what I built and why I think it matters, like that's a thing that is special. And the kind of people that I work with, they they're up to something, right? Like it matters that their business goes on. They have a better way that they want to do it for their customers or with their employees. They're out to change something significant. It's so we protect that, and that's a big deal. So there's lots of different
Oof.
methodologies, and if you just want to read the book and go implement somebody else's system, great. But if you want to build around and build into your people the ability to up level and train, and I mean, it's like when you sold books and you watch a kid or a student manager learn all this stuff, right? Or have these big epiphanies. You have the conversation, changes their life. Except now I do it with COOs and CEOs and, but it's the same conversations, just for the record. It's the same stuff because what people struggle with. I have a joke that I say to people. I'm like, there's only 12 basic ways that people suck. And once you figure out somebody's combo, it's just not that hard after that, right?
Yeah. Done.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, check this out. So if you were listening and they want to come and find you, this right here is, so you go to maverickandcompany.com. That's MAVERICKANDCOMPANY. So maverickandcompany.com. They can go find you, right? And then you got some free resources out here.
Ooh, click on that link.
Take a look at. Yeah, here we go.
We put a bunch of videos on there. There's articles, there's books. So however you like to learn, there's stuff for you, and it's all free. And you don't have to give your email address because I hate that. And if you're on LinkedIn, that's a really good place to follow me. We put up a lot of good content there and a lot of freebies. And I will say this, if you're somebody who sold books and you're just like grappling with something, you are actually always welcome to just give me a call. I really believe in paying it forward. And everybody was really nice to me when I started my company. My friend Whitney in particular, whenever I needed something, she would say, sure, what do you need? And so whenever somebody calls me, I try to say the same thing. And then I imagine you'll say it to somebody else. So it's okay to call. I'm good at saying no. I learned that too.
You need that for sure. And then here is where people can reach you, 720-273-3286 or Alecia, ALECIA at maverickandcompany.com. I put that into the banner if you're watching. That way that people
for the
can
record,
find you.
We came up with that URL before I realized that I'd have to say it 6 billion times and no one would be able to, like, it's and you can't change it later because now it's that.
It is what it is at this point. Yeah, we're the Ponytails podcast, whether we like it or not. That's how it's gonna stay. Yeah, I agree. We can't rebrand at this point. It's too stuck. So that's fantastic. I think what you're doing is so cool. I think it's such a cool, important thing, and I definitely have learned the value of it. Whether I'm through self-discovery or through just like other coaches and mentors similar to what you're doing, but not really like the way that you do it sounds so unique. I've never really heard of it. I've heard of people helping others manage and scale up, but the way that you're doing it sounds so unique. And I feel like that's, if you're listening, that this sounds like you need to get a hold of Alecia. Go find her. Get to it.
You should probably call me.
I should probably call you. Yeah, it sounds like we're gonna have to have another conversation after this about all sorts of different stuff. So that's good.
Oh,
okay. All right. We cool. All right, cool.
Game on.
That's what you're up to. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it sounds like it's time to jump into the pony stories. I feel like we've been on the air for 2 hours and 23 minutes. Can you believe that?
My earphones are gonna die, so we're gonna have to wrap it up at some point.
Yeah, so we probably head into that direction. So as we head into the ponytails, a couple more words from our some of our partners. Do you know Julio? Did you ever meet Julio Hernandez?
I don't know that I did, but I think he's awesome. Is he like Julio with the hair and he's awesome? That guy?
He's
Julio?
Colombian. He's another Colombian like me. And he created this company. So I know Lester Crafton is doing his own thing, but honestly, Julio, damn. Talk about a guy who can really lead. That the gentleman is a stud. And every time he's one of those people that when you get off the phone with him, you're like, God, I'm glad I called him. I'm
Oh,
glad I
I
called him.
love that.
Yeah, he's crushing. So they're in the solar industry, of course. Nick Taverdi works with them pretty regularly. I have actually worked with them part time. I still do every once in a while when they need help with like Spanish interpretation because yo hablo español.
Ooh.
That means I speak Spanish. Just
Yeah,
so you know.
I know what it means. I just can't come up with a reply because I took Spanish in high school and that was a while ago.
South Dakota people, come on, get it
Dude.
together. Nobody's
Yeah,
perfect. I'm just kidding.
my Spanish teacher. That's a story for another day because that's a very funny one.
Oh boy. Okay. So anyway, on that note, yeah, EnLight.Energy, fantastic place to work. They're looking for people who want to continue to who like that door-to-door grind and who enjoyed the idea of earning your worth. The solar industry pays outrageously good. Holy shit. And it's moving forward. I mean, everything in the every projection, Forbes magazine, all beyond looks like if you're not in solar, it's kind of like getting into Bitcoin at the right moment. Right now is like the moment to get into solar.
Well,
and I
and
can
there's a
say
lot
from
of
personal
people.
experience.
There's a lot of people who really want to change the world, right? Who really are like, man, the environment, that's a big thing. Selling solar is actually a thing that you can do that is a win for you and a win for the planet. Like the more we have solar be pervasive, the bigger a deal that is. So if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I could get psyched up about going out and actually saving the planet every day, that would be
Exactly.
good
So if
game
you're
to
listening
play.
to this and maybe real estate wasn't the thing and maybe insurance wasn't the thing, but you're like, man, who else is out there that's kicking ass in the book world and the alumni world that I can get a hold of because I'm currently looking to change careers? If it wasn't real estate, well, it should be. If it wasn't insurance, which it should be, well, then hell, it should be insurance. It should be solar because God, like everybody knows if you can trust a book, man, to have it be good for you. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's something about working for someone who sold books and that's kicking ass right now. And they are definitely kicking ass right now. Alex Black's episode is the one that you need to go listen to for sure.
Being around people who are killing it, right? Because that's the other thing. When you just throw yourself out there in the world, odds are not good you're going to end up with a super high caliber of people around you. I do a lot of mentorship. By the way, there's a site called veterati.com. If you just kind of miss coaching people and you want to give back, they match veterans who are transitioning to civilian life with professional mentors in the business community. It's super easy. It's amazing. I hit my 100 hours of contribution, but like you get to talk to like Navy SEALs who are afraid they won't get a job because they're not skilled enough. And you're like, okay, let me just reframe that for you real quick. But a lot of them, they struggle because it's hard to find people that are the same caliber. So if you're kind of looking around your office going, I don't know, this isn't as much fun. I don't feel like I'm really with all the winners. Put yourself at the President's Club table and, get in touch with some of these people and look at making a shift because life is both shorter than you think, but also longer than you think. And it's not fun to be with people who are in the mediocre zone.
Absolutely right. And you nailed it. That's exactly right. So get a hold of us. We can get you in touch with Julio, and it's a wonderful place to work. They're expanding into different states. And so, doesn't matter really where you live. They do remote sales as well. So pretty awesome there. So now it's some time for the pony stories. Do we need to take any sort of break? Do you need to go to the restaurant? I know you mentioned earlier that you're like, okay, just checking in because you've been drinking some Coke.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. The guest is our priority. So, we're doing that. So, all right.
I appreciate
Ponytail.
that. I'm in book chick mode. Let's do this.
What's peeing? I don't even know. I'll just go in my car, however that works.
It's just more scatological humor. That's not an option for girls. Like we always had to ask. It was always a thing.
Yeah.
There's no cornfields on our side of the book field.
That's true. The grass was not greener. The cornfields weren't taller on your side. All right. So ponytails, what do you got for us? I mean, this is a moment where the mic is yours to share any of the best stories you have, impactful stories, funny stories, crazy stories, poop stories. It's the gambit. So it's your mic.
Oh geez, I feel unprepared. Like, yeah, I'm literally like, ooh, what's my best book field story? God, can I tell a story about managing somebody? Like this isn't
100%.
necessarily the funny one, but when I think back about the book field, this is one of my favorite ones. So we had a kid, it was like my third summer, we're selling in Missouri, and we used to go meet. If you've never been to the old cathedral underneath the arch, you want to go to that church, even if you're not religious. It's crazy. I've been to the Vatican and all over. It's this amazing place. We used to go every Sunday. It's just so incredible. But when we were there that summer, we had a kid named Norm. And Norm was this super charming guy. He's a little chubby. His joke and Norm was his nickname. I don't even know what his real name was because everywhere he went, everybody just yelled Norm like on Cheers. And Norm used to say, he's like, moms love me, daughters, not so much. Like he was just that kind of a guy, right? And I loved Norm, but like in his summer, he got off schedule. And so they sent me in to do the, killer Alecia eyes and weed it all out, right? So we're sitting in this mall area and it's just Norm and I, and I'm confronting him about the fact that he's not working as hard as he's supposed to be. And my experience with off schedule is you really got to get people to admit all of the crap, like just whatever the like critical mass is. And once they've sort of confessed up, then they get a fresh start. But you have to dig and actually get all of it, because if they hold any of that back, then there's guilt and shame, and that just tends to attract more guilt and shame, and it just doesn't work. So it's maybe one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with anybody, because it just took a long time. And I remember, because he's this very lovable guy, and I just remember glaring at him as hard as I could and trying as hard as I could to keep like an intense face, because he just needed that kind of pressure to like weed all of it out. So it was like literally, I don't know, 60, 70 minutes of me just sitting there going, what else, Norm? Tell me all of it. You need to know, what else are you doing? What else? And it was hard, right? And he's crying, and it's intense, and we were far enough away that we didn't have that thing where you have people walk by when somebody's crying. Like that's the other thing you learn when you sell books, is how to cry in the middle of a PC, a personal conference, just be puking and snot everywhere, and everybody is walking past, and you don't even care because it's the Holiday Inn, whatever. I just want to have a good week. It's all I do. I'm just all of that, right? So he's going through all this, and then there's this moment, and I don't think I'm gonna make it. Like I think we're probably gonna have to end. Like I don't think we can get all the way to the bottom, because PCs are only supposed to be an hour, team. So we keep going, and then there's this beautiful moment where he says like the last thing, and then I see him like lean back in his chair, and his shoulders drop, and he takes this deep breath, and it's now done, and he's like crying, right? And so I work with him, and I tell him, we're just going to focus on, I just need you to tell me the truth every single night. Like no matter what happened, I just need you to be straight with me. Right. Like I want you to do 3 things. One, if you're going to leave, you got to come work with me for 3 days, or whatever the thing we used to say. And whenever you tell me your stats, if you messed anything up, you got to tell me, and you never have 2 bad days in a row. Right. So like if the first day is bad, we're going to have you come follow me. Like we're going to work you back. Like you can come back from this. And luckily I had some firsthand experience, because I had whiffed it so hard the summer before in, Georgia. And so I work with Norm, and he's on my stat line, and I talk to him every night. Some good nights and some bad nights. And then toward the end of the summer, we're starting to decide who's going to come back as a manager. And I remember we sat around and we started talking about it, and just became really obvious to all of us that it was Norm. And he wasn't selling the most books, right? He wasn't like lighting the world on fire. But I remember I got to be the one to invite him back. So I pull him aside, and he's kind of scared, right? I mean, you never know, right? It could go bad. But I pull him aside, and I sit him down, and I just kind of explain to him, I'm like, it's a big deal when we start thinking about who we want to work with and who we think we can trust to impact people in the right way. Like that's a big responsibility. And said, Norm, I want you to know that we really believe in you, and we want to have you be the very first person that we invite to come work with us next year, because and he starts crying, and he looks at me, and he says, nobody's ever actually believed in me before. Like he just comes from a tough home where he didn't get a lot of good reinforcement as a kid. And so that moment, like if you've ever seen somebody just practically glow, right? Like you could practically see sparkles radiating off him. He was so grateful and happy, and I was so proud of him, and I couldn't believe that I've been like a part of that. And so Norm came back the next summer, and he was a great manager. He didn't sell 1 million units, but he was amazing with people, and he was really good at that. And Norm became an elementary school teacher. Like he became this amazing teacher who just loves on these kids and is the good voice in their head. when some of them don't always have that, right? Like, and he knows how to do that in part because he dealt with his own voices in his head, and he learned and he overcame that stuff, and he found a confidence that, you know, I don't know if Norm would have found that somewhere else, right? Like, it's not, he was the same, he had all this good stuff in him, but I don't know if, you know, an internship at an insurance agency was going to bring that to the surface and have it actually get dealt with, because he actually had to confront what he believed about himself and choose to do something different, and then do the work to build the confidence that he could be this other guy. And so when I think about selling books, I mean, it's funny because I'm still mad that I didn't sell 10,000 units, right? Like, I'm still pissed off I didn't hit more because I'm competitive, and what are you going to do about that, right? But I do think a lot about, like, I had a kid when I was field managing at Mizzou, and I sat him down, and he had recruited his best friend, and I sat him down and I said, listen, you think this is going to be way easier than it's going to be, and you think that about all of life, and it's not, and you've been dicking around with everything you've ever done, and when is it going to stop? And we had a real come to Jesus conversation, and I don't know where that kid is now, but I know that, I mean, he's like, Alecia, nobody's ever talked to me like this. Like, he'd never even had somebody say to him, you're not fooling me, right? And we know when we see people go sell books, it's like, it's not hard. You're like, how many units are you going to sell? Well, I think, and you're like, no, you're not. That was easy. Let's move on. Like, there's things that you learn to call bullshit in a really productive way. But when I think about selling books, for me, it's the Norms of the world, and it's, you know, it's the Alecias of the world, right? Like, I'm a much, much better person, and I'm a much healthier person. I'm so blessed that I was with a group of people who would give me a second chance, like, let me blow it as bad as I blew it, and then keep working with me. And that's one of the things I tell people about selling books. Like, you're not going to find very many places where you're going to get this kind of training and investment in helping you suck less. Thanks, Will. You're that's called the circle back, right? Just for fun. But there's very few places where somebody's going to sit down with you for an hour once a week and every single night and try to clean out your head and help you think about you in a better way and have you be better at whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. That's not the standard, right? So if you really want to level up in life, it's partly about what you do, it's partly about who you do it with, and it's partly about what kind of framework you're in. That's why I love that you guys hired Will, even though I'm going to, you know, cage match him and just crush him. Because you need somebody to help you in that way. And some of us, we just need to be loved on a little bit, because life is hard. Running your own business is hard. Managing a bunch of people, having their mortgages depend on whether or not you sell. These things are not easy. It matters.
Wow. You are so great.
5 summers, Andres. 5 summers. Just saying.
That's it. That's it. Golly, that's so good. That's so good.
Dude, send me an invite. I'm really excited about this Bizzler. I don't know. I've got some big trips planned. I'm going to Kenya to visit Emily Woods. If you guys know her, she runs Sanovation. Yes. So I'm going to her wedding in Kenya in June. So I've got some travel planned, but I love
August 15th through the 19th.
I love what you guys are up to, because that community is a thing that is really valuable, and the more connections we make, I think the better off we all are. So I want to know. I want to go to one of the parties with the music in the house that Pat Roach sold somebody, and Greta's there, and everybody's got life insurance. I want to go to all the things.
They got solar, and everybody's fit because of our wellness.
Dude, right. And the thing is running because of the solar, like, and we're all buffed,
and the DJs are
really
jamming.
hot. Dude,
it's
killer.
Legit.
Sweet.
It's legit.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, ding, ding.
Seriously, though, thank you. This was super
Did you have fun?
I didn't think it'd be I didn't think it would be this much fun. I thought I would feel a little weird, like, nobody wants to hear my book stories. But you really, you have a great way with people. It was a blast. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you so from the bottom of my heart. The whole thing runs because of people like you, because of people 102 episodes in, and none of it has been because of me. It's been because of the people who come and share their experience, and some of them interweave and overlap, and they're similar, and some of them are different completely. But every single one of the episodes has been an entirely unique experience, in my opinion. And so it's because of the guests, it's because of people like you who come in and want to openly share what they've learned, and hopefully for whatever reason inspire others to do the same. So crazy thing that we did in college.
This door-to-door thing. And for the rest of your life,
wild.
You're always saying, well, when I was in college, I had this crazy job. You probably know somebody that sold books door to door. What kind of books? Like educational books for kids, stuff with math and science. I don't still know most of the sales talk. That's not a thing.
No, I don't want to go, oh, have you not heard about me? Still, like, or whatever it is. Oh, I get it. Well, once again, for the last, for people listening, and this is, I feel like that was a good needle, like a good sub right there. For people listening, one more time, maverickandcompany.com. That's where you can go find Alecia Huck. You can also find her on LinkedIn. She's on available for any sort of, especially if you sold books, go find her, go connect. We would love to, hear about the progress. We want to keep up with you and see how you're doing. We definitely need to talk about some other stuff about, as far as like joining up and having you be our partner. That'd be cool. I would love to.
You get better looking if you work with me too. You can buy a bigger house with Pat Roach. You can afford more life insurance. You have all the solar panels, not just a couple. You get like the whole big package.
Throw a weekly party.
Pretty sweet, dude. You are a weekly party at that point. You're your own walking president's club. It's pretty magical.
That's right. Make sure, if you've listened to this far, if you've got to the end, make sure you guys follow us. Subscribe. The subscribe button is right there on YouTube. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. If you're on Spotify, make sure you share with all the other book people. This is such a fun thing that we're doing, and we're trying to build this network as big as we can to reach out to as many of those 150,000 living alumni that supposedly exist out there. That way,
I heard it's a billion. I heard it's a billion.
It is. 1 in 7 people have sold
100 million people.
That's exactly right. Amazing. Well, I hope you had fun, Alecia. This has been a blast for me. I love my job, and of course, this episode was one of my favorites for sure. It's such a fun experience. You guys, my name is Andres Gamboa. This has been episode 102 of the Ponytails podcast. We'll catch you on the next one. We have some really cool guests coming up. I know Marty Pyle's coming. Pat O'Segian's coming up.
Marty Pyle?
Yeah, he's up next. And then Roger Sipe. Roger Sipe is coming up.
I love Roger Sipe. He's an OG too. You got to tell him I said hey.
OG. Yeah, he'll be up in April.
He's the OG, I think, is actually his title.
Roger is legit.
He stole most of his stuff from me. Is the truth?
Absolutely. Actually, for me, I have seen that when I was in 7th grade. And he heard my 7th grade speech, 3rd period speech class. He heard it.
Ask him about his Botox. That's all I'm saying.
We'll ask Grant. We are not sponsored by Botox, but we can be.
Listen,
and we'll
somebody
see you guys
out
on the
there
next
is
one.
doing plastic surgery. Let's get them on the show. They can be a jockey.
That's right. On that note, we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, everybody.